Hello, and welcome to the show because you are now tuned into a brand spanking new Monday Night Live. That's right. AKA the Hangout Stream, AKA the Chill Stream, baby. All fired up, having some fun for, February 20th, 2023. And brought to you by yours truly, the man, broadcasting from behind the curtain. You know who I am. Because if you don't know by now, you can visit www.livefreeliverich.com or simply Google this name and you can find out. How you guys doing? Did you have a good week or what? You have a good week or what? Let me break this down right now for you real quick, real fast. This is what we got for tonight. Lined up for tonight. I have some science fiction reading for you tonight. That's right. I have new releases to announce as well as crowdfunding campaigns. I know you guys like that stuff. I got some crowdfunding campaigns to cover and update you on. I have audiobook news as well as audio drama to discuss. Don't confuse the two. Don't conflate the two. They are mutually exclusive. Speaking of drama, you already know that I have some hot topic for you guys tonight, all lined up. That's right. But I'll also be, I'll close out the show on a lighter note. And tonight I'll be closing out the show with an original song for you guys. Am I singing? Well, I guess you'll have to stay tuned to find out. However, before I get to all of that, okay, first things first, I like to take this time. Let's say hello to the chat. Of course, we have James Krake here. James Krake, now wait a minute. You're not only in the chat, but you are actually here right now to help me with my first segment of the show where I like to slide in and talk about some books. That's right. That are currently available or coming soon to an online store near you. James Krake, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you for showing up. I was a little iffy. I was like, I don't know. He's down to the wire.
I admit that I didn't realize you had already given me the link. So at like quarter two, I was like, where's the link?
Well, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you found it. Happy to have you. I'm fairly new to this myself as far as having guests. So I try to I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants, if you will.
I completely understand.
Winslow Swan is here. Hey, what's going on, man? He's taking a break from editing for a bit. Join me tonight. Happy to have you. Yes.
Dude, and editing is genuinely the worst. I hate it.
Really? You don't like editing? So for me, that's the fun part. But what you go on? Let me hear what
I'm good at editing. I actually do have a technical enough eye to catch the grammar mistakes and so on. I just don't enjoy it. The initial drafting phase is hands down the best phase.
You think so? I feel like it's because I'm okay. So I'll tell you a little insight of my process. I'm a plantser, so I do plot, but it's loose plot. It's loose. I leave room for a little for when I'm actually writing the prose, there's room for me to take liberty and practice a little creative license as far as that goes, because things might change, along the way. I might come up with different kind of dialogue or something like that might make more sense. Or I might discover something I might want to change in the plot that might work better, what have you. So I do kind of like a loose outline as far as that goes. So the drafting process for me is getting all the ideas out there. The fun part for me is going back and doing the revising. So I should clarify. I think editing and revising, sure, they're the same, but with revising, I feel like you're focused more on the story, whereas editing, it's like just picking out all those little grammar errors and line errors and stuff, which always seem to slip through after you've hit publish.
So I don't plan as much as you do. I don't start a story until I have like the flavor I'm trying to go for, the
Flavor.
archetypes I'm trying to hit. Like just the other day, I finished drafting out the third book in my cyberpunk series,
Okay.
and it's a serial killer novel. So I started the series knowing who my detective is, who the killer is, who he's killing, and why he's killing them. And you know, it's the third book in the series, so I already know the setting, and that's where I stopped planning and I just started writing. Because if I know the characters, I know where they are, and I know what they want, and like the general vibe I'm going for, I can kind of muddle my way through in the draft. And I can get a pretty good, but not quite publishable first draft doing that. So the reason editing kills me is I usually have to wholesale destroy entire sections to rewrite the same sequence of events better. Because, you know,
Sure.
after doing it, I know the characters better. I know what I need to foreshadow or whatever. But it still feels like I'm redoing work, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's different for everybody, you know, in that regard. But tonight, let's talk about something that you've already have on the market, and we're going to talk about your Infinite Money Glitch novel. Now, this is the one that I've heard of you already through the grapevine, and this is the book that I kind of was first introduced to your name as far as that goes. So let me bring that one up.
It's my most recent release.
Yeah, and so let's get you on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up your book cover, and then I'll have you go ahead. You can just read if you could read the blurb to kind of introduce us to the book, and then we can get into it a little bit deeper if you'd like. Let's see.
Sure. I could probably one up that and give you a link to my article on why I wrote the book.
Your synopsis through your website?
Yeah, it's kind of a synopsis, but yeah, it's on my website.
All right. I'm actually going to link that in the show notes for you guys. If you're watching this on the replay, it should be in the show notes, but I will have it in the show notes. I'm going to be putting a link to your website. So if people would like to kind of get the more in-depth synopsis, we could do that for sure. Let's see. Let me get my screen here. Okay. All right. Take it away, sir.
All right. So do you like video games?
Who doesn't?
Perfect answer. There has been a huge surge in books in the quote unquote lit RPG genre. How familiar are you with that?
Not very. Maybe you could give me the short and sweet.
To put it crudely, it is a form of power fantasy where the characters know that they're leveling up and getting stronger. Because it's really nice to read a story about a guy, a loser who becomes powerful, right?
The hero's journey, if you will. Is it kind of a spin of the hero's journey?
It's supposed to be, although there's definitely some bad examples where it's just like a contrived excuse for the main character to win all the time, every time. It's really popular. Video games are really popular, and I found myself wanting to write a story set inside of a video game. But my personal issue with the lit RPG genre is it always feels like it never seems like the main character is against the threat that he is not equipped to beat by the entire contrivance of the power fantasy. So I found, because I was thinking about that, I kind of thought about the idea of like, well, what about a character who doesn't care that he's in this kind of system, where he acknowledges he's in a video game system, but that's really not where the tension comes from. And then I mixed that with some other ideas and created Infinite Money Glitch, which is about the tutorial zone merchant who, under normal circumstances, would never bother to level up because he has no need to. He has his job, and that's all fine until he realizes that there is an exploit in the auction house. And as long as he can corner the market on a material that has basically been shorted by a guild, he can become infinitely wealthy by cornering the market because of a quirk in the way it works. Because this is a heist based on the GameStop short squeeze from last year. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So I used that as inspiration for a heist, and I wrote a character that just now has been forced into like, well, crap, I guess I do actually need to level up. I do need to go grind and get my levels. Not that getting in a fight is ever the important thing. It's because I literally have to get into this boss fight so I can get the materials to get a bajillion gold coins. So is this kind of like a story, like not so much, I mean, maybe you're about to get into it, but maybe not so much like an adventure as much as it's like kind of like a what if type of story. Like, in other words, like, for instance, with the title, The Infinite Money Glitch, is it kind of like a what if money was not an issue type of story? Like, no, the main character is literally an artificial intelligence inside of basically World of Warcraft.
Okay.
So he is the put upon non-player character who the player characters always just like trash his store. They rob him. They ignore his quests and they crap on him because he's just the tutorial zone merchant. And the story starts when he goes, oh, there's a mistake in the system right now. If I grab this thing right now and I hold on to it and I don't sell it, I can set the sell price. And I can set the sale price at 99,999,000,000 gold coins, and they will have to buy it from me.
Inflation.
that might be the sequel.
Very good.
So it's actually, so first and foremost, it's a comedy. This is a character who knows he's a non-player character. He's an AI in a game, and he's playing with humans. And it kind of drives him mad that they treat him like he's not sapient, even though he is. And after it being a comedy, it's a hybrid adventure and heist. Because what they're trying to do is rob the stock market. But to do that, they have to assemble a team. They have to go dungeon raiding. They have to fight giant monsters, and they have to collect the rare drop rewards.
Okay.
And then after they do that, they have to survive assassins and duels and the entire world system turning against them, so that they can actually pull it off. So if you like gamer humor, man, and you want a tight, action-paced adventure story, I think I hit it out of the park. I loved writing this book.
All right, so kind of one for the gamer bros, if you will. Do you think this is kind of resonate with like the Reddit crowd, seeing as how you're?
Well, I wouldn't willingly associate with Reddit, but.
Oh, okay. No offense.
But yeah, so do you watch speedrunning at all?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Yeah, and I've watched some of them. Like I will admit that I've watched some of the Mario 64 speedrun videos.
Have you watched the world record for Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time?
The one that like exploits like glitches and stuff like that.
Well, the code injection speedrun is terrible. It's terrible. I'm talking about.
I'm aware. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it.
So Ocarina of Time was my childhood, man. And there are two big glitches in Ocarina of Time. One is the wrong warp glitch where they connect the doors incorrectly, basically. But the other is this hyper slide shield exploit using the mechanics of bomb knockback to travel at like Mach 3 backwards. And that's how they get around every place. I always thought that was really cool. And I do like speedruns and how they dig into the glitches of it. So there's nods to that in the story.
of gamer
Yes,
culture?
there are several major speedrunning glitches that are like pivotal to the plot and such. For the people who know, and they can go, I know where that's from. I know what this guy's referencing and so on. And like one of the characters is a speedrunner because like the half the people playing the game are like live streaming them playing it.
So I guess kind of off the cuff, I'd probably say that to me that does seem interesting that you're kind of like melding, the gamer culture and kind of putting it into literature. So like, because I've always said like it would be nice to see more guys, picking up some books and getting into this like booktube kind of like sphere and stuff like that. Because I know that with guys, a lot of the story, the stories that guys are into, or the storytelling that guys are into, either usually come from movies or more so from gaming these days. So I think that that's kind of cool that you're kind of tapping into that gamers market. Have you seen that? You have people who are into gaming, and like you've gotten people who are into gaming to like pick up your book and give it a shot.
As a self-published author, it's really hard to get anyone's attention, unfortunately.
That is
but the people that have picked up the book have been the gamers, and they've gone, "Oh my god, I like that's Goldenrod Inn from World of Warcraft. I know exactly what you're referencing right there, man."
In other words, these are guys. They're not literature guys. They're not people that are typically like reading books in their free time. Is basically kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So I think there is a huge amount of the market out there that is just unserved right now. You look at what's published, and it's like mass-produced romance novels.
Sure,
okay, no guy's gonna pick that up.
Yeah, it's definitely like female-dominated type of scene. I feel like it's changing, but yeah, for as far as like romance dominates the market. Yeah,
right. There is a very large market in web novels, lit RPG, a huge desire for escapism, and I think people are coming around to books explicitly because movies and video games simply don't have the storytelling anymore. We can think back fondly to like the early 2000s, but what's come out recently, like a handful of standouts, which are not enough to sate a person's desire for leisure.
Sure. A lot more interactive. Well, I'm going to let me just, before I let you go, let me ask you now. I know that, like I say, this is the first piece of work that I've kind of heard your name mentioned before, and I've seen you on other streams because I jump in on other podcasts and stuff like that as well. I was going to ask you, I know that you're not just writing sci-fi, but that you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're actually interested in kind of expanding your creative horizons. And I was wondering, like, what maybe are some other genres that you'd be interested in, either some other genres that you'd be interested in writing, or creative mediums in general, like say comics, film, what have you, that you are either involved in or would like to aspire to.
So I already have an epic fantasy web novel that's free to read for anyone who wants to pull it up. I look at that as like a lost leader. It's sort of like evil Merlin and King Arthur are trying to conquer the world. And I release a chapter of that every week and have for the last year. So that's out there. I do have a outline for a story I would love to get created into comic book form. And I'm kind of holding out hope that Rippaverse is going to open general pitches, because I think Eric July would absolutely jump all over this. I just don't have the ability to pitch it to him.
As far as your web novel, that was The Undying Emperor. I remember that one because I will be reading a little bit of that in a future episode. But yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard of that one as well.
Yeah, that is some very nice sword and sorcery. I love the original Conan series.
Oh, I actually just picked up a collection of his. So it's like all the Robert Howard collection, if you will, of Conan.
Right on.
Thick book too.
Getting in paperback is really nice. The audiobook you can get is actually like top notch.
Okay. Now, before I say goodbye, I'd just like to ask you: is there an indie author that you would like to shout out, or specific like indie book that you've read that you would like to recommend? And also, do you have another content creator that you would like to suggest for people who are interested in learning more about the indie scene?
I think I'm obligated to shout out the Unreal Press guys because they just released a horror anthology that I am in. Give
Unreal
me a
Press.
few. Yeah, they just released Tales of the Unreal, which
Okay.
is a really slick little pocketbook sized anthology.
And you have a story featured in that one?
I am the third story in there. Yeah,
All right.
KGB agents from beyond the stars went pretty hard for the pulp feel.
Right on. Right on.
And
Anybody else?
in a few months, I think, hopefully less, I will be featured in Story Hacks anthology, Sidearm and Sorcery 2. So that's a pretty sweet anthology that I think everyone should try and check out. I can get
All
you the
right.
link if you haven't seen it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, any links, man. If you want to share them with me, I'll be sure to. Even if you want to post them in private chat or anything like that, I can add them. Let's see who we got here. Let's see. Oh, there's Unreal Press podcast. Is that Speak of the Devil right there?
I believe that's the guy. There's a couple of imitators that are all friends and just screwing with each other.
Oh, we want the authentic. Yeah, of course, Winslow will say that's why I let Crimson edit. You don't like editing. Well, thank you, James. Right, thank you for taking the time to come on here.
Thanks for having me on.
With me, for sure. And we'll be keeping an eye out. That is your book, Infinite Money Glitch, is available now wherever books are sold or exclusively Amazon.
So I publish through Ingram Spark, so I always direct people to Amazon, but it's everywhere.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, and I wish you the best, man.
Right on. Have a good one.
Take care. All right, all right. All right, if you guys want to just give me a second to get caught up here. The Real McCoy in the house, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to post those links. We'll see if I can do this through StreamYard, if it will allow me to do this through StreamYard. Oh, very good. Very good. Excellent. So there's James' website. And this must be the magazine or anthology he was talking about. There we are. Excellent. And I thank you guys for showing up in the chat too. For you guys who are in the chat, I'm going to be, I'll be checking in periodically, try to keep everything moving along here, but I'll be checking in periodically. So any of you guys in the chat, you're watching the show, go ahead, say hi. I just like to know who took the time to stop by as far as that goes. And if you guys are working on anything, you got some projects coming up or anything like that, go ahead and you can let me know what's going on. All right. Winslow says it's time for coffee. When is it not time for coffee? It's always a good time for coffee, even right before you're about to go to sleep. That's the best time. Guy Hayes, hello, welcome to the show. All right, we're going to move it right along here. Up next, this comes from Twitter. Just shares a link here. This is Rikki Orgullo, I believe is how you pronounce that. Let's check it out. And this is their book, Paying Her Price, a thriller novel. And this is the Tragic Lovers, Book 1. All right, there is the cover, ladies and gentlemen. And now I will present to you the blurb. Yeah. Yeah. Who needs sleep? We'll sleep. We'll sleep when we die. Jeez. Sleep is for the weak. TJ. All right. Hey, I was wondering why you bought 1770 subs in the month of December 2021. Not me. I don't buy subs. All right. Are you trying to bring controversy to the hangout stream, to the chill stream, sir? Not you. Come on. You are new here, by the way, Anderson. Welcome, though. Let's see. Here is the blurb. Enrique, spent the first few months, Enrique Collins spent the first few months out of the Marine Corps, moving into a new apartment in Philadelphia to start college in the fall. His plans for a new life looked promising until he met Jennifer Barlow, a Spitfire graduate student, headstrong in her convictions. After a few months in the relationship, an ugly and sudden breakup teaches Enrique what comes from falling in love with a stranger. Still, Enrique reaches out to Jennifer for closure at her apartment. Instead, he finds it ransacked, full of signs of foul play, and a terrified witness, Jennifer's best friend, Vicky Applegate. Their only clue? A name scratched into a cult's pamphlet, Schrodinger's Truth. I wonder if that's a play on Schrodinger's, is it Schrodinger's cat? Schrodinger's Truth. Zealots of the cult want to use Jennifer as their sacrificial key in a ritual somewhere deep within the city. As the duo journey on to solve, as the duo journey on to solve the mystery of how Jennifer's cryptic past connects her with them, the only truth that becomes apparent is that some secrets were meant to be forgotten. 266 pages of kidnapping thrillers, romantic suspense thrillers. Can't go wrong with cults, people. Cults are, people like a good cult story. All right. And here we go. Next up, we have from Lysette Christensen, says, Dishonor of Hell. Now in pre-order, 99 cents, limited time. Don't miss out on this fast-paced espionage spy fiction for an ending you won't see coming. Dishonor of Hell. Okay. Let's see what this one's about. Thrillers where bullets are flying, bodies dropping, and hearts breaking. Blackbird finds herself back in New York. She faces one of her toughest assignments, her past. Can she survive it, or does it finally catch up with her? Don't miss out on this fast-paced espionage spy thriller for an ending you won't see coming. 112 pages of espionage, thriller, and suspense. Of course, this is actually book 7 in this series of The Silent Secrets. So I wonder if this is like if the author does like a continuation type of deal, or if each one of these is kind of like its own kind of standalone adventure. There you go. If you guys like espionage and thrillers and suspense, a couple of thrillers this week. Not too shabby. Like you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know? You never quite know what you're going to get during the live stream. And I have one more book for you guys this week. Is that Winslow? We've only done one cult story back in season 4. We should do another. I'm the leader of the cult. Hey, I'll be a leader of the cult. We'll do like a Jim Jones thing or something like that. I'll send you a photo with me wearing my aviators. All right, let's get this last one going here. Oh, really? I saw that in the private chat, Daniel. All right. Last one up from Twitter. Get a lot of Twitter. I've had a lot of Twitter activity, and I do have something to say for you authors out there who are participating in these writer lifts and stuff like that I put on Twitter. Anyways, this one comes from user goes by AGT. Okay. Anyways, he says available in the Kindle Unlimited library for free with your subscription. He has a new book, Turned Out. A fast read that makes you think, gasp, and giggle. A little quote there from somebody talking about, they're talking about Turned Out by Aaron Tarpley. Let's check this one out before we close out this segment here. All right. That cover looks familiar. All right. Here is the blurb on this one. A new age hybrid style of angst release. A fast read that makes you think, gasp, and giggle. Poetry, prose, and history collide like a train wreck Superman was late for. The content of my books will end senseless protests by all leaders across the nation and the world if translated and not transliterated like an exegesis. I always mess up that word. Exegesis. A release of angst occurs while you read crafted words carved with nails, while an invisible hand with a feather tickles you in indiscreet places. Sir, can you please keep your hands to yourself? Book 4 of 4 in a series of books written after hindsight came knocking, like a pregnant bunny rabbit on Easter in 2020. That was the blurb. 96 pages of, I'm not really quite sure what this actually is all about, but it is categorized under inspirational and religious poetry. 2-hour religion and spiritual short reads in poetry. So, I guess you're getting yourself into some poetry with this one. Never quite know what you're going to get on the live stream. Like I say, it's always something that I look forward to. But those are the books, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the books for this week. So if you're watching this on the replay, or you can tune in tomorrow, I'll probably have it up on the community tab. You can go ahead, and what you can do is head over to the community tab and you can cast your vote. Yes, that's right. For which one out of those 4 books you thought had the most text appeal. So in other words, which one out of those 4 books would you be most likely to pick up? And also, if you would like to discover some more from the independent market, you can head on over to my shorts tab or my playlist tab and open yourself up some mystery packs. Inside each mystery pack, there will be a cover card which reveals a book from the independent market recognized by the Live Free, Live Rich Network, and also includes a link to an editorial written specifically on that work by yours truly. So that is it. What was I going to say? Yes, as far as the books. So here's what I'm going to do moving forward for you guys. I had quite a bit of activity on Twitter this past week with my writers lifts. So what I typically do is 3 times a week, I'll post a writers lift, which kind of dovetails as like a promo for the show. So as a promo for the show, it kind of showcase, the things that I talked about, kind of just cover the highlights, the short and sweet, if you will, the books that I covered, the authors that I covered, and things that happen during the show, and kind of act as a promo, but at the same time, make it so other people can jump aboard and start sharing some links with me. So if you share your links with me, what I do is I will add your books or your projects to the queue. And I had quite a bit this past week. So the queue has all the queues across the board kind of blew up as far as that goes. So I got quite a few shows planned out. Now, don't let that discourage you. Continue to share your links with me. And what I'm going to do from here on out, if you get in contact with me and you want to be a visitor on the show and you want to come on to the show live to talk about your book, what I'm going to do, I like to reward proactive engagement, people who are proactive. So if you want to come onto the show, what I'm going to do is I'll bump you in the queue. So if you've shared links with me and you express your interest in coming onto the show live, then what I'll do is I'll bump you in the queue and you can kind of skip ahead of the line as far as that goes. So I'm going to try that out, see how it goes. If I get a lot of people that, end up being like no shows or something like that, and it becomes a hassle to keep track of, who's going to show up, who's not going to show up, I might discontinue that. But as of right now, so far so good, and that's what I'm gonna offer to you guys, kind of moving forward. So with that being said, let's get into some announcements. Yes, we have some announcements. Let me get this set up here. So announcements, if you guys have any kind of crowdfunding campaigns, you have some anthology projects, anything like that that you would like to share with me, then I will more than happy to bring that up during a future live stream. And tonight, I actually have a guest here with me to talk about his Kickstarter campaign. And this is the author of, actually mentioned one of his books before. He's the author of Hydra's Wake. And he's coming through with a brand new project called Hydra's Tower. I'd like to welcome Daniel Jones to the stream. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, how's
How are
everybody
you?
doing tonight? I'm doing fantastic.
Great, great. Happy to have you. Tonight, we're actually going to be talking about this right here. This is Hydra's Tower, and you got in touch with me on Twitter. It says you're actually launching, the time when you posted this, actually, the time when you posted this, you said it was launching tomorrow on Kickstarter.
Yes.
And that it would be active once Monday comes around, so today.
Yep.
And yeah, so basically this is a Kickstarter campaign, okay? This is for your newest novel coming out, Hydra's Tower. I saw the cover, by the way. First thing that came my mind was, damn, Daniel, back at it again with the Hydras.
Oh, yes.
Except this time around, you're doing something a little bit different. And you're kind of coming at it from a medieval approach, if you will.
Oh, yes. This is a very fun project. Hydra's Wake is a steampunk survival creature feature through and through. So Hydra Tower, we take it in a very different direction for me. It is a fantasy retelling of the Princess and Dragon story. Princess locked in the tallest tower of the castle, protected by a fearsome dragon. So I say on Twitter quite a lot that dragons are overused. They're good, but there are other creatures like the Hydra that can be utilized more in fiction. So you
always hear about people talking about the dragons, very rarely with the Hydras.
Yes.
A little bit more uncommon, if you will.
True. Yes.
However, the Hydra, I would say, is kind of like more of a biblical type of beast. The multi-headed, multiple heads.
It's very fascinating. I've come to say that any white knight in shiny armor upon a fiery steed can take out a dragon, but it's literally a Herculean task to take on a Hydra. So there are some legendary proportions that come into it. But yeah, so Hydra Tower flips the script. We've got a Hydra in place of the dragon. And to flip it even further, we're putting the prince in the tower. And we're having the princess go in and rescue him. So
the prince is in the tower. He got his ass captured by the Hydras or the powers that be. Is the Hydra the main thing, or is there other characters like antagonists that are kind of like almost pulling the strings, if you will? Or is that too much info to reveal?
So actually, anybody who read Hydra's Wake knows very well that my antagonists play a large role in the story. So yes, Hydra Tower will sort of follow the formula that I've developed, in that we're going to have a complex story here. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. There's blood, guts, and gore plenty.
Okay. Let's go into this campaign. Now, you said that it was going to be live today. However, something happened. Did it end up going live before scheduled, or what? What was going on with that?
That was a little bit of a goof on my behalf. I thought I set it to go live at midnight our time on that Thursday, and obviously launch on Friday, start of Friday. I got the time zone wrong. Oops on me. And it launched.
But it launched on Friday. It launched on Friday, so people might have been expecting Monday, but it ended up launching on Friday, and within
1
less than
hour. Yeah.
1 hour, 1 hour, you've already surpassed your goal that you had set on here.
Yeah. A lot of folks that were part of my Hydra's Wake Kickstarter, and some people that were watching it, and of course all the attention that I put into it on Twitter. As soon as it launched and people got the notices, they jumped on.
That's
to the
amazing,
tune
Danny.
of over 1,000.
That's amazing. I mean, clearly you've already started to establish a solid fan base for your IP here. That's cool. So 21, we got 21 backers here, and still 49 days to go.
Yeah.
So people, so let's see why. Let's take a look at this and see why people would want to jump in on this. Maybe you can explain a little bit of your insight as far as why you decided to go the Kickstarter route, why you decided to go the crowdfunding route.
Yeah, so crowdfunding is an underutilized resource by authors. Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and GoFundMe are free to set up. And if they work, that's money that you can take in and use for the purposes of marketing, getting your author business set up, or pretty much anything you need to support yourself as an author to get a running start, create the momentum that you need. And it's huge. I mean, when you're an indie author, you're taking on all of the responsibility of what a publishing house has the funding to do.
Now, what I'm thinking is why would an indie author, aside from, say, the extra funds or whatever, but why, in other words, from the reader standpoint, what would be attractive to jumping in on a Kickstarter campaign? And it looks like what you have here is there's some exclusive, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some exclusives that are involved for people who decide to back the campaign versus, say, people who are just, pre-ordering the book and waiting for it to be released on, say, Amazon or something like that.
Absolutely. And to start with, if you go through Amazon's KDP to pre-order the books, you can only set the ebook for pre-order. Starting a Kickstarter, you have to run those before your product is released. So I run mine long, as you noted, 49 days ago. That offers people the opportunity to pre-order the paperback and the hardcover ahead of time. And
so is it advanced? Now, are these books that, in other words, are going to be in the hands of readers before the actual release date of the novel?
if I get the
Are these,
author
in other words,
copies-
are these advanced copies that they're getting?
So the ebook, they will get the advanced review copy of before everybody else. That's given.
Okay.
If I get my author copies in time, I can make that happen. But yeah, there are two highlights on the base premises of it, and that is it offers pre-orders for the paperback and hardcover with the bonus of them being signed. So you'll be the first kid on the block with a signed copy of Hydra Tower. And
Okay, so it sounds like it's almost like an engagement type of thing, getting people engaged, getting people excited for the project, before the actual release. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. A way for you to kind of interact with your fan base, if you will.
it is. And when I ran the Hydra's Wake Kickstarter, I was able to get a lot of tonal vibes on what people thought of it because I included a significant preview of Hydra's Wake on that. So, and I've done the same thing with Hydra Tower here. When you scroll all the way to the bottom of the Kickstarter page itself, you'll see that I included the first half of the first chapter. So you can actually read a significant portion of Hydra Tower before it's even released.
Okay. And of course, I will be leaving this in the show notes for you guys.
Yep.
Let's take a look. I will say, I want to take a look at these perks real quick to see, what it is that people, if they make a pledge, they decide to get involved in the project, what are some of the extras, that they're not, that's not going to be available, say, perhaps, once the campaign's over, unless you do some sort of special thing after the fact. So I just scrolled down to the one that has the most stuff to offer, just to see what all the extras are. So looks like if you pledge $150 or more, you have some things including so shout outs, you'll get there's bookmarks, bumper stickers, a poster set of the cover art and rear illustration. Oh, the back side of the book.
Yep.
A metal bookmark, a lanyard, yep. Ceramic mugs, drawstring bag. So a whole lot of swag is basically, You got a lot of swag in here. Then you'll also, of course, you'll get your signed paperback, the ebook, you'll get that in advance, and then the Hydra's Tower, a signed hardcover.
Yes.
So let's see.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you go further down than that, to the Alta Terran Hydra.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it keeps going. And as you can see right there, one person has taken the second highest tier. So
let's see
there are some people that will drop some money on this stuff. And to be fair, I have given them a significant reason. The two highest tiers, the King's package and the Hydra package.
Yeah, I was just trying to see what was the difference. It looks like you're adding more.
Yeah, the Alehorn tankards are the really big draw for this campaign. Alehorn is a company that makes drinking horns, tankards out of actual ox horns.
Oh, okay.
And I've had them customized to look like Hydra teeth that have been knocked out. So be a badass warrior, drink from the tooth of a Hydra.
Oh, okay. I see the angle you're going there. All right. Let's check out let me see these stretch goals. So the stretch goal 1 looks like you're getting you've already hit your initial goal.
Yep.
Stretch goal. It says this will allow Hydra Tower to start strong with a larger paid advertising campaign. Okay, so you're kind of being transparent with like where these funds are going and what people are helping you to accomplish with this campaign. And it says at this goal, I'll give everyone who gets these tiers here the lanyard. Oh, okay, so you'll start kind of spreading the wealth, so to speak. All right. Anything to note as far as with these stretch goals that isn't previously covered in any of the other tiers?
So there's a lot that the stretch goals can do. The one that I really want to hit is the $6,000 one, because for me that allows an audiobook to be funded. And in return of that, everyone who basically gets anything above the shout out, they're going to get a free audiobook.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that those audio narrators, I imagine they must charge quite a penny if you want to get someone who's really professional.
Yeah, there is a profit sharing option through ACX, the company that Amazon works with for audiobooks. But the opportunity to use profit sharing, I've found to be very limited. A majority of artists, understandably, want to be paid per finished hour, and that can be $200 to $300 for professional grade work. I can find cheaper, but you pay for what you get for the most part.
Sure. So, yeah.
But running a Kickstarter itself, I'll go into that a little bit. You want to run these before, you have to run these before your product is released. You want to give yourself the time to run them. And you want to put preparation into that. You have to take these relatively seriously. if you do hit your goal, you are expected to finish your project. Now, what I do is I make sure the book is finished, written, edited, the cover art, ready to go. It's ready to be published, essentially. But I'm giving myself the time to run that Kickstarter so I don't have the problem of not finishing a Kickstarter
Sure.
that I succeed with, because the money has to go towards what you intend it to. And the primary goal of mine is to raise advertising and marketing funds, which all goes back to, if you're competing with the publishing houses, it helps to have a slush fund to play around with the paid advertising on Amazon, Facebook, Twitter to get a feel for it.
So in other words, it's all anything extra. Anything extra that you get after the fact is really just reinvested back into your projects, or
Correct.
reinvested, whether it be getting extra, whether it's advertising, marketing, or getting extra like promo materials or something like that. Say, for instance, if you're doing your book signings or attending conventions. Any interest in attending conventions or anything like that in the future for you?
So I am hoping to attend several of them this year. I am definitely going to Fright Read's Book Festival here in Maryland. It's a smaller local one to us that has blown up over the past 2 years.
Okay.
That'll be really exciting to go to. We have a few small conventions, Stellar Con. I'm going to put my application in for that one soon. And I've already got an application for Awesome Con in DC. That's a massive one. But it also costs $1,300 for me to put in. So that's tied to my highest tier. I don't expect I'm going to hit that. Well, fingers crossed I do, but in case I don't, I'm not entirely brokenhearted about it. But yeah, going into running the Kickstarters, I actually, where did I put it? So when you're running Kickstarters and you want to take into account having money left over, I'll say this up front, shipping your rewards to your backers can eat up what you take in very fast.
No doubt.
So if you look at the basic paperback tier on it, I'm charging $15 for the signed paperback tier. And for Hydra Tower as an author copy, that cost me $4.91. Using US Post Office's media mail program, library mail program, it cost me $3.85 to ship. And the box that I put it in cost me 33 cents. So combine all that, it's about $10 of spend for that reward. And
So the margins do seem to be pretty tight as far as that goes. But again, like I say, it seems to me like it's more about encouraging the engagement. So encouraging people, getting people hyped for the project, giving you a chance to engage, get your fan base engaged and hyped for the project ahead of release date. And I kind of like that idea.
It is. And for the publishing section of Kickstarter, that's the big thing. It's very different when you go into like the video game side of Kickstarter, where it really is, we need the funds, we need maximum funds. But for authors, I mean, it's a great way to build up knowledge, a community. For Hydra's Wake, there were a lot of small publisher companies that were interested in seeing what they might have missed out on or something like that. And I had quite a few. I actually have quite a few on Hydra Tower's list already. But yeah, there are some professional reviewers, actual companies, presses that pick up your books from Kickstarter just to discover you and see how it goes in the long run for it, especially when they're successful.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's great, man, and congratulations on your success, on a successful campaign in such a crazy amount of time. 1 hour already fulfilled. Boom. I mean, that must really alleviate, a lot of the, maybe some of the pressure when you do a campaign like this, is to see, that there are people that are like, hey, man, we're here for you, and we want to see you. We want to see you succeed. So that must feel nice,
It does. For comparison, Hydra's Wake, the Kickstarter for that had 50 backers that raised $2,700. And yeah, that ran for about 60 days. So I'm already on track to do better than that. And I'm excited for what Hydra Tower will bring to the table.
All right. Well, here's to your success. And I want to say, so are you, as far as the Hydras go, so are you planning to kind of stick to this kind of creature feature model that you have kind of building up here, kind of stay niche? And is that something that you kind of want to be recognized for?
Originally, I had a lot of other plans to go into so many different directions. Don't know quite what the future holds, but for now, it certainly seems that I'm going down the creature feature road, which is really fun. I get to play with monsters.
Sure.
I get to do a lot of really fun things. Hydra's Wake does have a sequel, Frost Wake, which will be coming September if everything comes just fine.
Oh, a little inside info there. Is that have you shared that with anyone else yet?
I've mentioned it here and there, but I don't think anyone's really picked up on it yet. I've got the Wake series, and then I've got standalone novels that I'm going to do in between each release of the Wake series. So
these are not. So the Wake is going to be a series. This Hydra's Tower, is this a standalone? This is a completely different type of story here. Different characters.
Different world, different everything. One of the cool things about Hydra Tower is I actually introduce a lot of creatures from other mythologies into it that you may not know. One of my favorites is the Groot Slang, which is a monstrous serpent where the head is an elephant's head. And if you Google Groot Slang and pull up the images for it, what a beast!
I will have to look that up on during my off time, and I will get back to you as far as my thoughts on that.
Yeah, actually, let me see if I can do this, because this pretty much sums up the animal. This comes from South African mythology, and it plays a minor role in
I can pop it up.
The story.
Very nice.
Let's see. Yeah, that. Terrifying animals that you may not have known of that are in worldwide mythology. So that's fun. But my next standalone novel after Frostwake is going to be Manticore Trails. So we'll be playing with manticores.
I've heard of the Manticore.
Yep.
I'm familiar with that beast.
Yep. So that'll be fun. I will be writing creature features that feature animals of different mythologies to give them a spotlight for once.
All right. And it looks like you've kind of found yourself a winning formula as far as that goes. So I wish you the best, man. And before I let you go, do you have another indie author or independently published book that you would like to recommend to the audience?
Yeah, so my indie author recommendation will be Joe Davey. He is the author of Archaic Deception, The Guardians of Emblems. This book is sci-fi fantasy, and it is one of the most complex stories that I've read. Joe was one of the first authors that I connected with on Twitter, and he's the first person that I picked up a signed copy of. So thank you, Joe. This was an incredible gift.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Now, is there, I don't know how much time you put into YouTube or anything like that, but I was wondering, do you watch other content creators, or do you have any content creators that you would like to kind of give a shout out to if anyone's interested in, finding out more about the independent market?
There actually is a wealth of information in a podcast and website blog called The Picky Bookworm.
Picky Bookworm.
Yep. Pamela is absolutely fantastic, and I completely recommend giving her website and her podcast a look through. She actually is an editor for indie authors, and she loves to interview them, review, and do all that jazz.
So what's her specialty? The interviews and reviews?
She loves doing podcasts, but her specialty is editing indie author work. She is really good at taking our unique hodgepodges and hammer some sense into it so that it comes out on a professional level for readers.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel. This is actually this is actually a first for us, like to kind of become acquainted with each other. I've seen you all well, I see you on Twitter like all the time, but
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first time that we've kind of got to chop it up a little bit. So I appreciate you making the time and coming
It's
on.
my pleasure.
And congratulations on your project, and perhaps we'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
Hey, take care.
Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.
All right. Hydra's Tower. Hydra's Tower, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's see what else we have here. All right. Now, those of you who are familiar, I actually this is an Indiegogo. I have an update on an Indiegogo campaign. That this is actually one of my, I want to do an update on this because this is actually one of the first Indiegogo campaigns that I have actually jumped in on as a contributor or donor or whatever, however you want to explain it. But this is a little update on the Steins, the Rise of the Vampires on Indiegogo. And I just wanted to say a quick thing about this campaign. Now, there was an update. There's an option for creators to post updates on their campaigns. So I just wanted to bring that to light and kind of just say a couple words on that. So this is the Steins. It started off as a trilogy of novels. Now they're coming out with a graphic novel of the Steins, Rise of the Vampires. They've hit 20% on their goal. Now here's the update. I just wanted to make a note that he's being very transparent with his updates. I don't know if this is something that is common practice among most people who launch crowdfunding campaigns, but I just like to bring it to light that of what James is doing with the campaign here. So he says week 2 finished, and he says, hello all. He says, I wanted to say again, thank you for backing the campaign, and also those who still have not, and also those who still have not. Please, do we still have? He says, please do. We still have the secret perks live. So the secret perks, and it says, we hope you'll back the campaign soon. The part that I wanted to kind of highlight here was this part right here. He says, right now, we are just over 20% funded. Okay. And then he gives a live update, pages penciled and inked. Penciled and inked 12. I believe this is, if I'm not mistaken, this was going to be a 40+ page project. It's no small undertaking as far as that goes. And then pages lettered 9. He says, all is on track. So I just thought that was cool. I saw that update and I thought that, wow, that's pretty transparent. So there's no wondering like how far along or are they going to be able to fulfill this project or how long. Now, I think that what holds a lot of people back for some of these campaigns, if I were to just kind of go out on a limb here, is, you're more or less, when you do a pledge or donation, that's exactly what you're doing. You're donating or you're pledging to the project to help the creator for various types of expenses on that project. You're not purchasing anything, in other words. So everything that they may offer is called perks. So that's just kind of like extras as like a thank you for your donation or your pledge. So I think for a lot of people, when they do these things, it might worry them as to like, okay, is this person actually going to be able to fulfill the campaign? And am I actually going to get what it is that they said they were going to reward me with for, whatever tier that I purchase or pledge? So I just think that's, if anything, kind of adds a little peace of mind as far as that goes. So let's see, just they have 20% funded already. There's still 44 days left on this project with a goal of just under $10,000 on this one. So just thought I'd give a quick update on that. And if you guys want to share links with me, the best place to do that, the easiest way, I should say, to get your work mentioned on the stream is to join one of our group servers. So we have both the Gilded server and the Discord server, and those links are always in the show notes down below. So you can just take your pick. I've made one of each for those of you who prefer one over the other, or you can welcome to join both if you'd like. Really, it's just a way for me to be able to have like direct contact with those of you creators out there. And I'm trying to build this up so it's just like, it's not something that I have any expectations of you guys to like engage in small talk with me. You have to check in daily. I need to know anything that's going on in your personal lives. No, like if you just want to jump in there, I just want to kind of start it as like a resource tool, a direct line of connection, if you will, between me and you. And we can, you can just go there. I got all the different channels. You can share your links with me, whether that be your books, anthology projects. If you are a reader and you run book clubs, or you want to schedule some buddy reads, anything like that type of stuff, anything that I could talk about during the show and I could mention during the show, there's a spot for you guys to share that on both of the servers. So you guys can jump in on there, and also networking too. So it's not just sure, it's a resource for you just as much as it's a resource for me in that regard, as far as sharing your links, and then I can just go in there and I can add your stuff to the queue. So it helps me kind of streamline the whole process of like planning for these shows. But at the same time, there's bound to be other creators and authors in there that you guys can, chit chat with amongst yourselves. You guys want to network together? Please, by all means. You guys want to share your own different groups and stuff like that, and see, what other people are into, more power to you. Who's here? Cross Comics. Hey, I saw you on Cap's channel, and you had asked me something about Twitter. You said something about you DM me on Twitter, but I didn't get a DM. I don't know if it was Twitter being funky or if you got the right account, but there should be, if you go to the main, I wasn't going to plug it on Cap's channel, but I would say here, now that you're here, if you go to the main page on my channel, you should see right on the banner of my YouTube that I should have my Twitter, a direct link to my Twitter account on there. So that's the Twitter account that I use. So if you do, my DMs are open. So if you want to DM me, you can do so. Whatever you got to talk to me about. Oh, okay. I gotcha. Dillard wasn't present at the time. That's probably why I got that mixed up. All right. So let's see. Let's get into some audio stuff, huh? We got some audio books. We got an audio book and audio drama to talk about here. So this past week, I played a role in a little series that you guys have probably heard about before on this show, and that is Doorway to Nightmare. Yes. And I play a role in playing God. Yeah, you heard that right. In the latest episode of Doorway to Nightmare. And this episode was fun. This is, I was actually playing the role of a scientist, more specifically, someone who is involved with genetic engineering. And he catches up with some old college buddies or colleagues who are also into the same thing. And they've been up to... things get out of control pretty quick and pretty fast. Let's just put it that way. But I have to say that the whole idea of like genetic engineering in general just gives me the heebie-jeebies, because damn well that there's some crazy shit going on out there with genetic and scientists and stuff like that. That's what I call under the category of mad science. It's definitely sus. Once you start getting into like the field of like genetic engineering and stuff like that, I think that you're starting to tap into things that mankind was just not meant to be messing around with. And that stuff just gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking about like all the different types of creations and stuff like that. They call them GMOs, if you will. Genetically modified organisms. When you think GMOs, a lot of people will automatically just think about food, like GMO food and stuff like that, like GMO corn or GMO like byproduct or something like that would be put into foods for harvesting purposes or growing purposes. In other words, like make it meatier, make the corn more corny, if you will. But GMOs can also be living organisms as well. So, well, they're all living organisms, but I'm saying like as far as like mammals, reptiles, and I can only imagine the type of like monstrosities and stuff like that that's going on out there that, the general public has no idea about. And that's the type of stuff that, once I get thinking about it, it's like, it just gives me the creeps. That's all I have to say about that one. So I'll leave a link to that. You guys can check out that one for yourself. It's a fun little show, and it premieres each episode. There's new episodes. We're in season 6 right now. So new episodes premiere on Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And some of us will show up. while the episode is premiering, and we'll be in the live chat. It's fun little fun time. All right. Now, speaking of the audiobooks, and then this comes from author Greg Austin, just shares a link to his Audible. Just wanted people to know. Let's see. He just wanted people to know that his book, Sins of the Father by Greg Austin, is now available on audiobook. And I will add a link to that. I know some of you guys, you like the audiobooks. You know, you'll listen to the audiobook, you'll do something else at the same time. And I know there's a sample on there that you can check out as well. Of course, speaking of stories, we have the Storyteller Society, folks. I'm keeping it going. This is for you aspiring authors out there who have yet to have any of your work published at all, or for you published authors out there who are looking to kind of expand your creative portfolio. The Storyteller Society is a project that I launched early last year. Kind of like a, just kind of reach out to my peers and make opportunities available to collaborate with other writers and authors out there. This is run directly through my blog, and we're looking for flash fiction. So flash fiction for this project, between 500 to 2,000 words. Of course, it can be any genre. And I actually went and updated the submission form. So the submission form, you'll notice now, actually has a little drop-down menu, so you can make it easier for me to know how to kind of categorize your work. So there's all different types of categories on there. So whether you want to submit something that's literary fiction or be recognized as like romance or action adventure, horror, mystery, what have you. And this is something that I'm going to be continuing indefinitely. When you guys submit to this project, it's free to read. There's no contracts, and it's a non-exclusive deal. It's just the terms that you're just agreeing to terms of agreement, which just means that you're giving me permission to publish your work on my website for public viewing indefinitely is what that means. And this is the first stage of this project. What I would like to do down the road is kind of turn this into something bigger. In other words, maybe make it into like a web series, or or maybe anybody who contributes to this project, I can then turn around and approach and say, hey, I'm thinking about putting together an anthology or something like that. Would you be interested in being a part of that project? That sort of thing. It's kind of like my way of not only offering an opportunity for other writers out there to get their work published in different places, but also kind of like build a peer-to-peer, business-to-business type of relationship, if you will. And I like that. And I think, I would like, I'm always on the lookout for that myself as well, because I've been starting to write a little bit more flash fiction, and I would like to find a home for those works eventually. So I got my eyes peeled for any of you out there. If you got anthology projects coming on, or you do something similar to, like I just said right there, like if you just run like a blog or something like that, and it's free for public viewing, I would be willing to submit a piece of work, even if it's non-paid. If it's not paid, but it's a free, in other words, it's a free for public viewing type of deal, I might be open to doing something like that. But if it's an anthology, yeah, anthologies, if it's like a commercial product, then yeah, people usually expect some sort of payment as far as that goes, some sort of form of compensation. Let's get into the last one here. We have a new release coming out from AJ Aberford coming, and this is actually coming up March 14th. So he just wanted people to know that this is coming up. This is something that is part of his series here. He says, thanks. Here are the first 3 in my crime fiction series featuring the hapless Inspector George Zammit of the Malta Police, getting embroiled in international crime far above his pay grade. And book 4 is out the 14th of March. So any of you guys interested in that crime fiction? Be leaving what I'll do for this one, since I'm not really mentioning any of the books in particular. I'll just leave a link to his Twitter account. You guys can kind of get in touch with him if that's something that you'd be interested in. Now, before we get into some comments, I'd just like to let you guys know that as far as periodicals go, I do release a weekly newsletter. Yes, a weekly newsletter, Live Free, Live Rich Weekly. So if you have no interest in joining the group servers like the Discord, if you join the Discord or the Guilded, then you'll be kept up to date on whatever's going on. If you tune in regularly to what's going on with the live stream, I kind of want these live streams to kind of be a gathering, if you will, a hangout, something that you can like put on, whether you're working on something on the side, you got this playing in the background, what have you. You know, you want to jump in, you want to participate in the chat, let me know what kind of projects you got going on. The more the merrier as far as that goes. But the Live Free, Live Rich Weekly is just simple newsletter. You go to the website, livefreeliverich.com. It's right on the main page. You subscribe to that. And I'm going to give you the bullet points of what happens on a week-to-week basis as far as new uploads, news, what have you. However, I'm thinking of launching something that will make the newsletters kind of like an exclusive thing. So like there will be something exclusive, a reason for you to subscribe to the newsletter. So I'm thinking about doing something that might involve like giveaways or sweepstakes or something like that, where in order to enter into those things, you would have to subscribe to the newsletter because there's going to be pertinent information within the newsletter that you would have to kind of like recite. I don't know, like a, you know, we'll see. It's just an idea that I have floating around right now. And that's it for the announcements. Let's get into the next segment. This is an as needed segment for you guys. This is where I call your comments matter. That's right. My comments section is not there to satisfy the AI overlords and algorithm deities as much as it is there just for me, gives me an opportunity to kind of engage with those of you who choose to give my videos the time of day. And I'm very appreciative of that. Anyone who wants to stop by the channel and you know, give my videos the time of day, I want to make sure that you guys are acknowledged whenever you do that. So let's see what's going on in the channel here. All right, let's see. All right, got a little bit of activity going on here. Let's see, my top commenter. Of course, I got to get my top commenter in there. All right, so from last week, this is Ben Pick, Running to Write, his YouTube channel. He says, this is from last week. He says, wonderful interview with Herman Hunter. Yes, had author Herman Hunter talking about his book last week. He says, I'll be adding The Wizard's Stone to my TBR. You hear that, Herman? There you go. Very nice. And you guys, I was just another quick note on that. Whenever you guys, if you want to leave, if you're watching this on the replay, and if you've ever purchased any of the books that I've featured on this show, please leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of anything that's been on the show before, because there's always the possibility that the authors might be watching or something like that. So it's, it's nice. It's just nice to see, who's kind of involved in the community. It kind of creates that feeling, if you will. Yes. Excitement. Yes. So he goes on to say, he says, AI can't generate art, whereas a human can create something new by drawing on their own life experiences. Is the type of thing a future AI vlog bot could not generate. Thanks for all the shout outs. Yeah, we got a little bit in depth. We went a little bit deeper with the ongoing conversation of art and artificial intelligence during that episode. Speaking of which, we have a Deadly Tarantula Girl hops in on the conversation, and she says, how long before we start seeing novels written by artificial intelligence? How long indeed is the question. Jeff Potts chimes in and says, I think we already are. It's definitely a possibility, and most likely. Actually, you hear about that guy. I was going to say, there was that one guy. There's already people doing it. I know it was in the news or it was cycling around online. There was that one guy who had the children's book that was completely AI generated. From the images were AI generated and the text was AI generated. And he put the whole project, together and then published it. I don't know if he published it on Amazon or what, but I remember that story was kind of cycling around on social media for a little while there. All right, moving right along. Speak of the devil, there's my top commenter. The Right Mindset. This is Thomas Beleza of The Right Mindset. It's actually the first podcast that I made a guest appearance on. He's chiming in. The Forest for the Trees. This was a couple episodes back. He says, thank you for the shout out. And yes, 100%, we are not our book. And marketing always begins with an emotional connection with your audience. The emotional connection is through the audience connecting with the author themselves and who they are, what they believe in, and how they present their truth. Had this conversation. One thing that we were talking about was like how in other words, to go in on that, how the author is not their book. Like in this age of like social media, it's almost like it's basically like a prerequisite nowadays that you have to have some kind of social media presence. Maybe you're not on there every day. Maybe you're not always on the social medias. You're not, because for me, I'll say this much, say what you want as far as that goes. I do come from the standpoint that I am the type of person that can separate the art from the artist. And what I mean by that is like, I don't care about this whole emerging culture of like people going all up in arms because an author said something or they did something that was, problematic or something like that. I really don't care about that crap, to be honest with you. An author's personal life is not my personal life as far as that goes. Now, since this whole advent of artificial intelligence, I am kind of taking more of an interest as far as where my art comes from, where my products are coming from in terms of art and entertainment. In other words, I would like to know I would like to know ahead of time if some form of artificial intelligence was used in the creation of the work itself, whether it be the artwork or say the text, or if it's video, because don't forget, we got those deep fakes and we got filters and stuff like that out there as well, which I guess would kind of filters, not so much, but it still kind of falls under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. So all I'm saying is I don't need to know I don't need to know every little detail about an author's personal life. And quite frankly, I'd prefer to kind of keep those things separate from their art, from the art itself. For instance, like when I review a book, and we're going to be getting into it too with this next hot topic. We'll be bringing it up in the next segment here. I'll save that note. Let's keep it moving. Let's see. And Thomas also, he on last week's stream, he says, "What a fantastic interview!" And that means something coming from you, Thomas, because you do. Thomas does quite a few. He's already done quite a few interviews on his channel, and I suggest you guys, if you want to, any of you authors out there, maybe you could get in touch with Thomas or something like that. He's got a pretty cool series that he does, and he's real easy guy to talk to as well. He says, "What a fantastic interview. You both had a nice, comfortable conversation with each other. I am going to have to get you on season 3 of my podcast. That season will have a theme of discussions between authors. I'm going to have 2 authors and me on all talking about the industry and being an author." And then he also goes on a little bit of a correction here. He says, "I acted on SNL a few times. Was also a good time." So I think I had mentioned, because he had done work for SNL, but I couldn't remember if he said he was a writer or what. But apparently Thomas has acted on Saturday Night Live before. So that's nice, interesting little fun fact. He says, "I can't wait till I'm back in New York to start doing it more again." And he says, "The male and pale." That had him laughing. Male and pale. Yes. I was saying, if you are male and you are pale, you might as well just go indie at this point, because it seems as though traditional publishing route is kind of being a little bit prejudice against whitey these days. Thank you guys for stopping by the channel and leaving some comments. If you guys want to chime in on anything all across the channel, whether it be the hot topics or the live streams, any of the books, have you purchased them? Have you read them? Share your thoughts down below. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know, and I will address your comment live on the air. Now, speaking of which, let's get into the next segment. This is kind of a staple of the Monday Night Live. And this is a little segment that I like to call Hot Topic for Content Creators. Yes, Hot Topic for Content Creators. This is where I pitch a hot topic to you guys, and then you guys turn around and create your own content on said topic. And if you tag me in that video or simply share the link with me to that video, then I may feature your video during a future live stream and respond to it. Or else you can always just go ahead and take your time, take some time, set it aside, sit down, really think about it, and put together a nice long comment, effectively like a blog post, if you will, and lay out your thoughts on the topic or whatever subject we're talking about on the matter in a a comprehensive, cohesive way. And then what I will do is I will address that comment live on the air during a future broadcast, and we'll go through your comment point by point by point during the show. All right, just a fun thing. Keep these conversations going, and what it is the first part of each hot topic. Right now, we have 4 topics going right now. And each part 1 is always the initial pitch, but every video after which is just a continuation of the conversation as we kind of embroider the topic. So you can watch the videos in any order, doesn't matter. This week, we are going to revisit the hot topic, indie author folly. So what I mean by indie author folly? Well, indie author folly is where I want you guys to kind of leave your comments as far as the business practices, the public relations, and what was the other one? The business practices, the public relations, or the marketing strategies of indie authors that you find are cringe. You think they're cringe. You think they're questionable. Just the behaviors of which. Okay, so I don't want this to be an open invitation to start gossiping about other indie authors or anything like that, name dropping. Oh, did you hear what so-and-so did, and so-and-so did this or that? No, I want this to very much be focused on the behaviors and things that the behaviors and the practices that you've observed within the scene, so we can discuss these ideas and use them as kind of like an opportunity to learn something. That's really what I want to get out of this. What do you think works? What do you think doesn't work? What's something that you've seen other people do that kind of rubbed you the wrong way, so you can kind of bring it into the forefront, so either A, people can kind of have some food for thought and maybe adjust their own behavior and say, yeah, that doesn't sound like it, it's something that I would want to do, or what have you. So this week, what I want to get into specifically is indie authors, okay? Because I've heard this around the scene. Indie authors getting involved in quote-unquote readers' spaces, all right? So first I have to talk about, well, what are these reader spaces? So the reader spaces would be like people who do reviews. So critics or bloggers, if you will, or maybe even people who are just on Booktube. And this is readers. I've heard it from like readers, so like Booktube, and this has been a subject on Booktube, where it's like talking about indie authors kind of invading reader spaces. So like if a critic or a book reviewer leaves a negative review and they post it online, they post it on Goodreads, and then they start getting flack, maybe not necessarily from the author directly, but perhaps from the author's fan base, because the author might have talked about the negative review and kind of put that critic on blast, and then that kind of got their fan base in an uproar, and then their fans go out and just start verbally attacking the critic or something like that. And I just want to say that right up front, like, and I feel like it kind of goes without saying, but it's just one of those things that I want to make people aware of, that this stuff does happen. And it kind of goes without saying that it's cringe, and it's not something that you want to do. But I don't want to take it a step further, and I'm not here on my soapbox trying to take a moral high ground and say, do better, guys, do better. I want it to be a little bit more than that. And the reason why I say it's not something that is in the author's best interests, who cares if you get a negative review, right? Because for one, I'm the type of person that's like, the only bad news is no news at all. That's the only bad news, especially if you're indie. Now, some people might have some reservations as far as that goes, and they might say, well, if it's a really big name booktuber, for instance, say the Booktube content creator or reviewer actually has a bigger following than, say, the author has, are they punching down at that point? And I don't know, as someone who reviews indie works as well. Well, for one, I'm in a standpoint where it's like my YouTube channel isn't that huge to begin with. So I don't really have that people can like point out. But at the same time, I'm also an indie author myself. So there's also that thing where it's like indie authors, if they review other indie authors' books, then there's like, I've heard this retaliation thing where indie authors will then turn around and they'll say, oh yeah, you're going to give my book a negative review? Well, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to use Goodreads on you, and I'm going to have people review bomb your books, which I've heard. I haven't actually seen happen for myself, but I've heard through the grapevine that it's happened to other authors. For me personally, I couldn't care less. I really couldn't. If anything, I would say the only bad news is no news at all. You know, even if people are doing negative reviews, I feel like if you have any kind of sense about you whatsoever, you can kind of tell people who actually read the book versus people who are just kind of like talking shit, as far as that goes. But as far as indie authors, quote unquote, invading reader spaces, I have a couple things to say about that. One is I think that it's a bad idea overall to like lash out at reviewers in general. Like if somebody's reviewing, if someone takes the time, especially in like my case, like I haven't had any, so far I haven't had any indie authors. I haven't had any problems with indie authors whatsoever. Saying anything, coming at me for the editorials that I've written on their work. And I've written some pretty scathing editorials, but I always make it a point to focus on the work itself and not the author. Okay, so that's one thing that I need to bring up again in a second here. But just to stay on point with the indie authors, it's not a good idea to kind of get into these spaces and get all butthurt over a negative review and start questioning. Don't start questioning. It's like the book itself. You know, say the critic, even if the critic misunderstood something about the book itself, or they didn't interpret it kind of in a particular way that maybe as the author might have intended or something like that, just let it go. Just let it go. It's like, because I feel like the more you talk about your work as an author, the less likely it's going to be that people are going to be inspired to pick up your work, because you're explaining everything that happens in the book. In other words, the more that you as the author of the work kind of explain away, the less reason there is for a reader to pick up the work, and because there's not much left to interpretation at that point. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're not leaving much. You know what that means? You're not leaving much desired in terms of the imagination, not leaving much for the imagination as far as that goes. So even if critics get it wrong, who cares? If someone picked up your book, someone took the time to read your book, and someone took the time to write a review, or took it a step further and wrote an actual editorial or a blog post on your work. That's huge. You know, if anything, I want to encourage more people. We need more people out here to do that. I'm only one guy. I can only read so many indie books, you know, at a time. I'm a mood reader. You know, I'm not reading double-digit books every month. So but when I do read a book, I will take the time to sit down, reflect upon the material, and take the time to sit down and write out an editorial and post a review on said work. You know, and we need more people out here involved in the scene. And I've said this before, if you want to focus on just wearing that hat, you just want to be a critic, then you could do so. And I feel like, in all fairness of booktubers and the critics out there, bloggers, reviewers, I agree with you in so much as that I don't think that you should be getting attacked by authors' fan base or anything like that, or harassed in any shape, fashion, or form directly by the author themselves for whatever it is that you have to say about their work. No matter how scathing the review, you, as the reviewer, owe the author diddly friggin' squat. You owe the author nothing. You do not have to explain yourself. You do not have to explain your critiques. You do not have to explain away your review, why you thought this way, why you thought that way. It's your experience with the book. It's kind of a personal thing, but at the same time, it's kind of a personal thing, but at the same time, reviewers always say, oh, reviews are for the reader. That's what they say. Reviews are for the readers. To a certain degree, for the most part, yes. I would say basic customer reviews are for the reader. But also, you can kind of build up your own fan base as a critic. Like if you run a blog or something like that, you can build up your own fan base. And it's a form of writing. Writing critiques, writing reviews is a form of writing. It's editorial writing. That's what that is. So that's more than just a basic customer review. And you can actually develop your own writing skills. There is a certain skill set involved with doing formal critiques of work. It's not just 100. I would argue that it's not 100% subjective. There is a method to the mayhem, and that may differ from one critic to another. But usually, if it's somebody like they know what they're doing, they've done it for a while, there's going to be some sort of structure involved, just like with a novel or with storytelling, like how storytelling usually has some sort of structure involved, a beginning, a middle, an end. There's plot, there's characters, there's world building, there's structure to a formal critique or an editorial piece. It's not just, I liked it or I hated it. That's just feelings. That's just emotions. A formal critique and a review goes deeper than that. It understands like how to break down a piece of work structurally, how to look at it and kind of like evaluate. Think of it as like you're kind of doing an evaluation of like what you thought about this, that, or the other, whether it be the plot, the characters, the world building, the imagery, however you want to do it up. But there's some sort of structure involved. And that's, to me, my opinion of what separates, a basic bitch customer review that may be coming from somebody who didn't even fucking read the work to begin with versus somebody who reads the work and does editorials kind of on a professional level. So just to kind of say that, because I know on the reader side, there are people that kind of read books just for the clout. And what do I mean by reading books for clout? It's like the type of reviewer that's out there and they're reading big name books, their individual review isn't really going to have an impact. There's a couple different ways. It gets a little bit murky. So I'm not going to get too much into detail. I'd rather just pitch the idea, where my thoughts are at, and see what you guys have to say on the matter. Do you think there's such thing as reading books for clout? Or is it, because I feel like there's kind of like a gray area there where it's like people will read books because they know it's going to get them attention, or people read books because they genuinely are interested in the book and they review that book. For instance, Stephen King comes to mind. No offense to you booktubers out there and you reviewers out there, but you doing a review on a Stephen King book does fuck all for the book. It's not going to, maybe it might get some people within your circle interested in Stephen King if they've been living under a rock, for the past couple decades. But I'd really say that when you're doing a review on, say, a Stephen King book, really what you're doing is you're throwing up a beacon. What you're doing is you're tossing up a beacon and saying, hey, guys, I like Stephen King, by the way, if you don't know. So for the rest of you guys out there who also like Stephen King, watch my videos, So that's why I say it's kind of like garnering the attention there. But is it just for clout? Is it just shameless kind of clout chasing at that point? Or is it really just like, hey, guys, I want to talk about Stephen King books, and I know he has a huge fan base, so I'm going to review one of his books. And maybe those of you out there who also like Stephen King would like to watch my videos and we can talk about Stephen King books. there's that. But then there's like the side with like indie too, where like there's these indie books that like get hot on like TikTok and whatnot for controversial reasons, whether it be have something to do with the author or the book itself, the marketing, something like that. And people review those books, not necessarily because they're interested in the book, but I think that it has more to do with just because of the notoriety surrounding the authors themselves. And that's what I mean is kind of like just doing it for the views, you know? I'm not saying I'm not making a value judgment or any kind of moral judgment, but I'm just putting it out there as like, what do you guys think about that matter? What are your opinions about that? So for me, they say, oh, it's allegedly all the reviews are for the readers. But I review indie books. So yeah, a part of that is like, yeah, I would like to raise awareness. Anytime I post anything or talk about indie books, I'm trying to raise awareness for the projects themselves. It's like, hey, guys, this is a book that exists within the underground scene. And usually it's a very obscure author. And people will say, well, don't leave scathing reviews. Don't leave negative reviews on an indie author's book. And don't tag people. Don't tag authors in your reviews when you post them if they are a negative review. And all I have to say about that is that, yeah, I've tagged authors in negative reviews, not because I'm trying to ruin the author's day, but because it's all the books and reviews that I do are usually on works that are extremely obscure. They're extremely obscure. And I go by the golden rule as like, I do unto others as I would like others to do unto me. And as I said before, the only bad news is no news at all. So even if someone took the time out of their day, and they not only they purchased one of my works with their own money, they purchased my own work, and they took the time to read that work, and they took the time to write a review on that work, I would be extremely appreciative of that, no matter how scathing the review is, because at the end of the day, it's no skin off my back. There's this thing of like, people think that it's punching down or something like that. And it's like, no, you don't know what that person, where that person, how that person may take that. Now, I will say that I've had authors block me because of the reviews that I've left or because of the editorials that I've written. Now, mind you, I've never, ever, ever personally attacked an author. I never go ad hominem on an author. In other words, I never talk about the author themselves as a person. My focus is always on the work itself because, as a rule of thumb, I always come from the standpoint that no matter how shitty a book is, okay, if I took the time, I bought it, I have a right to speak my mind on that work. I bought it with my own money. Someone decided to put that work out there on the open market for public purchase, and I decided to give that book a chance. And if it's shit, then I have every right to leave a scathing review about how shitty I thought the book was and give out reasons why. Now, as the indie author on the receiving end of a scathing review, I could say this much. You could either hate the person putting it out, whatever, but do it silently. You don't need to go back at them, because one thing is, you don't want to scare away critics. That's one piece of work. My rule of thumb is, an author, even if they wrote one shitty book, so what? That's one book. You can always create new works. You can always take whatever someone said in a review with a grain of salt, say, hey, I really don't like some of the language they were using in their editorial, but you know what? I'm going to look past that shit, and I'm just going to try and take what I can out of this and just try to understand maybe where they were coming from. And if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then just say, this guy's an idiot, and just keep it moving. You know what I mean? Because the last thing that we want to do as indie authors out here is to be scaring away the people who are already choosing to give indie books the time of day. And that's all I got to kind of say about that one. And I'll leave it up to you guys. and kind of develop this topic a little bit more as we go along and see what you guys have to say. And Cross Comics already on chapter 7 of the Wizard Stone. Hey, welcome. So the conversation continues, you guys. Post your own video on this subject matter, whatever kind of angle you want to come at, and you can tag me in the video, share the link, or leave a comment in the comment section down below. All right, we're in our final 2 segments here. Let's get into some reading time. And this one comes from the Discord server. And we're going to be reading chapter 1 of this science fiction, The Intergalactic Information Superhighway by Christopher Magnus. And this is coming courtesy of his website that he launched not too long ago at gatspublishing.wixsite.com. So let's sit back, kick back, relax, and begin to kind of unwind for the stream here tonight with a little reading time, and then I got a little video segment for you guys, kind of close out the show. All right, let's get right into it. The Intergalactic Information Superhighway, Chapter 1. He opens up with a little note here. Greetings, reader. This is Christopher Magnus, and welcome to my first blog. Today, I will keep it simple and post the first chapter of my first novel, The Intergalactic Information Superhighway, available for purchase on Amazon. Of course, he has the link right there. Please enjoy your time here and feel free to leave a comment about your impressions. I may do just that periodically as I go through this work here. Chapter 1, The Big Bang. That electrostatic spark sound was in the air. The sound you hear deep in your eardrums that sends the small hairs on the back of your neck to stand on end, that makes your head shake in small, quick convulsions. He heard it coming from the instrument panel just underneath the flight stick. He knew right then that it would be the third to last sound he heard, the last 2 being his screams that mixed with the grand explosion of his ship. It did not split into several pieces. No, it scattered into the star-studded backdrop like a supernova, leaving what appeared to be a newly birthed galaxy. This was one of Xantarth's favorite visuals in the morning. Another was the look on his employer's face after he finished a contract but took his job beyond what was deemed necessary. Xantarth would see the latter after his hyperlink was connected. He activated the hyperlink and saw the date illuminated on the view screen. The readout stated it was the year 3672 by ancient Earth standards. While he waited on his ship, the dread for the connection to be established, he walked slow and confident over to his meal preparation station. There, on the counter, lay his first meal of the day. He usually enjoyed breaking his fast after a job was completed. As he reached for his steak, eggs, and dark coffee, he noticed his reflection in the mirror that hung on the wall above the countertop. The years had been kinder to him. The years had been kinder to him than he had been to some of his clients. Although he had not been killed by the years that passed, sometimes it looked as though he had been close to death far too many times. His skin was as rough and darkened by the exposure to far too many non-humanoid planets that he had visited while on contract. He was a tall and firmly built man that appeared to be in his late 40s, with hair that was the color of wet sand and eyes that were a hazel green, which changed with the color of clothes that he wore. He had an almost regal look to himself. A beard covered his jawline that was short, shaven on the sides and long on the chin. Most did not know what his actual age was. Those that did know him would know him to be over 300 years old. With a face like that was once with a face that was once softer in his youth, that had turned sharper, a little wider, and much coarser over the years, with travel, fighting, medical attention, and just surviving. He noticed some dry blood on his face from his most recent fight and did not bother to clean it. He felt that it would show his employer that he had in fact done what he was paid to do. He ate his meal and finished putting on the old weather-beaten leather long coat that he had always worn, a once rich and shining coat with the deep reds of a midnight rose, had now been faded to a color similar to blood on a sandy beach during sunset. He still found a feeling of romance when he wore it and thought about the colors it had and the one that had gifted it to him. Before the hyperlink was connected, Xantar thought about this most recent job and how it had advanced him closer to his end goal, that of revenge. He had tracked his target to the outer rim of the Gillex system. The electro disruptor he had placed on his target's ship's engines had worked wonders. Xantarth waited until his target had left the planet Dermet until he activated the disruptor. It was designed to siphon energy from the ship's engines while powering itself. Once fully charged, it could cripple the ship's engines and sending it in a dead drift through space. I see. I'm starting to get a little bit of a connection between now and the beginning of the story there. Almost like there was a little prologue at the beginning there. Xantarth knew his target was wanting a quiet escape, so he allowed him to believe that he had one. When he was safely away from the planet, he would activate his hyper drive and be lost to the stars. There was a bright glow at the rear of the ship as the engines primed for hyperflight, then a sudden blackness. The engines were dead, as his target would soon be. As Xantarth flew closer to the ship, he aimed his ship's blaster cannons at the target's ship and fired 3 times. This further crippled it, leaving life support systems failing and any chance for repairs impossible in the short amount of time that Xantarth would require to board the ship and finish his contract. So I'm under the impression here that he's a bounty hunter of sorts. He glanced at the control console and remembered Sarah. What would she say about what you are doing? He thought to himself. She wouldn't say very much at this moment, would she? He replied to no one in particular. You know what I mean. Don't push me away. His thoughts were becoming more present in this moment, and it was a distraction, so he did exactly that. He pushed them away as he had done more so lately. He flew next to the ship and docked with it. While he prepared his mind and his body for the coming confrontation, he activated his body enhancements by thought while holding his breath, enhanced strength, quicker reflexes, heightened sense of smell and sight. Each one of these was offset by a jolt of electricity that emanated from the miniature reactor, a device that was smaller than his fist, which sat next to his heart. To use his augmentations caused him momentary pain and an inability to focus. It was worth it to him. He had learned to associate the pain with the future success that would soon follow. He had learned to love that pain. He tasted iron in the back of his mouth, and a tingle crawled up his spine. He knew he was ready. As he crossed the docking umbilical, he drew his heavy blaster pistol. A heavily weighted killing device made of impenetrite. It was specially designed to fit and work in his hand only. It felt like a part of him, and if it had grown out of his hand instead of having been placed in it. The power of his weapon was devastating. He thought that if his hand could shoot fire from a star, this was what it would feel like. The grip was cobalt blue, and the stock was a deep silver. A long barrel used for distant targets was visible as he held it out in front of him. It would look bulky and awkward in anyone else's hands, but in his hand, it was at home. I'm getting very vivid visuals here. And also, I'd say with the idea of having the gun and explaining the gun, normally wouldn't, I would say, be necessary per se. But in this instance, because he's kind of crossing this threshold from one ship to another, I can really kind of capture a visual of like him holding this gun out as he's making this, as he's kind of breaching the threshold here of this other ship with it in his hand. So I kind of dig that. He looked forward at his target's ship and saw that the service hatch entrance was sealed. The 3 cannon blasts he had sent earlier to cripple the life support systems had also fused the service hatch and blown the entry button to pieces. He had expected no less in his circumstances. Figures, he laughed to himself. Take one advantage and lose another. He held his breath to activate his environment adaptive skin. The miniature reactor sent a large jolt of electricity through his body, and he shuddered at the pain. His skin became hard as steel, yet his vision blurred, a common side effect of using too many of his augmentations. He readied himself for what would happen next. With the remote on his wrist, he sealed his ship's hatch, retracted the docking umbilical, and commanded his ship to draw back to a safe distance. There he was, floating in space. As he watched his ship fly away, he took a moment to observe how unique it looked. It still looked to him. The 3-pointed horseshoe shape was not the only special part of his ship's appearance. It had a mutated organic look to it, as if it were living being and not a ship manufactured by the Ha-Li Plex Corporation. Is that Asian? Silvers and grays swam across the hull, while hints of forest green shined when the light hit it from obscure angles. On the rear of his ship, he saw the 4 engine thrusters, as well as the 2 sets of large blaster cannons, complete with their twin gunners' chairs. So see, I would really just say at this point, like as the reader, I'm kind of looking forward to like this guy getting into the other guy's ship at this point. You know, him looking back, I feel like by having him look back and like describing what his ship looks like, it's kind of like it's kind of taking away from the anticipation. In other words, it's kind of taking me out of the story a little bit. Like I want to know, like you're starting to build the suspense here, but now you're kind of like starting to water down that suspense with all these additional descriptions and details that are kind of unnecessary, at least at seemingly unnecessary at this point in time in the action of what's going on in the scene. Xantarth turned his attention. Xantarth turned his attention back to his objective. You see what I mean? It's like you took a break away from the action. You broke away from the action instead of keeping the reader locked into, what was transpiring at hand. Xantarth turned his attention back to his objective. He would only have a minute to board his target ship before he would run out of oxygen, and then he would be in a much more precarious situation. So just another note on that. So I would have said, okay, say you wanted to explain I would probably say a better time to explain what his ship looked like is to say, okay, he's trying to get on board of this guy's ship, right? So the focus of the action is him getting onto this guy's ship and taking out this guy or doing whatever he's got to do to fulfill his contract, right? So that is where the focus of the action should really be at this point. And then say he does whatever he has to do. And then when he's leaving the ship and he's going back and returning to his ship as kind of like a sanctuary or returning to safety, if you will, then that probably would have been a more optimal time to then describe what his ship looked like. Just a suggestion, because it's kind of jarring to say you're building up the suspense and then you cut away from the suspense to describe something that is really, it's inconsequential to what is happening, to the action that's happening at hand. Xantarth turned his attention back to his objective. He would only have a minute to board his target's ship before he would run out of oxygen, and then he would be in a much more precarious situation. He aimed his heavy blaster at the service hatch door and fired. The bolt that emitted from his heavy blaster pistol barrel was the same cobalt blue of the blaster's grip. As it flew through space towards the service hatch door, arcs of electricity pulsed from and surrounded the bolt. Were it possible to hear sound in the vacuum of space, Xantarth would have listened to the all too familiar crackle whip that his blaster made when he fired it. When the bolt struck its target, the service hatch door began to superheat and fall apart into small sand-like pieces from the center and out towards the door. That's the third time you've referenced sand. The effect of the bolt had made a smoldering perfect circle where the door once was. Xantarth activated his propulsion boots and headed into the ship of his target. He looked inside of the service area of the ship and saw no one. Once inside of the ship, he sealed the bulkhead with the emergency door, which shut with great force. He exhaled and began to breathe normally again. With his thoughts, he had changed his skin back to its ordinary state and refocused his augmentations for advanced sight, reflex, and strength. For the coming confrontation, he knew he would surely need it. The contract that he had was on one Kurt Valkyrie, a Synfusion from the planet Gurtan. Synfusions were known to be hyper-intelligent beings. They were average height humanoid creatures that were very stout had skin the color of emerald green and the density of granite. They were normally stronger than most humanoids and were adept at hand-to-hand combat, as their culture revered courage in close-quarter engagements. To Xantarth, the Sinfusians reminded him of the dwarves of long past he had seen on his historical videos from the ancient Earth stories, although the Sinfusians were green and had stone for skin. Kurt Valkyrie was wanted dead by Xantarth's current employer, a Mr. Odwed, for the theft of 23 billion credits. 23 billion credits? Jesus. Xantarth did not care about the credits. What he cared about was getting the job done. He's a man of business, very professional, that Xantarth. Doing this would take more effort than his previous contracts, as Kurt Valkyrie had used the credits he stole to augment his body. He was not only a very intelligent being, but he was also extremely strong. Xantarth had used his resources to gain an advantage in this encounter, but he wasn't sure it would be enough to simply shut down life support and weaken Kurt Valkyrie. Xantarth approached the bridge door with extreme caution and opened it. Inside the bridge, the emergency lights illuminated the room in a dark purple light. The ultraviolet lighting had made the room appear deeper than it was. Xantarth scanned the room from left to right, and in the corner of the room, he found what appeared to be a pile of rocks. He aimed his heavy blaster with a lightning fast hand and fired. Crackle, whip. The rocks did what the service hatch door had done and then fell into a small mound of hot ash. Smoke ascended from the ash pile, and there was a soft grinding sound coming from the bridge. He is surely dead, Xantarth thought. Just then, the grinding sound grew to a roaring avalanche as crashing boulders. As Xantarth turned and retreated one step backwards, he saw Kurt crashing down towards where he was, standing only a fraction of a second before. Had he not moved, he would be a mess of blood and bones on the floor. He lifted his heavy blaster and took aim as Kurt sprang from his landing with unnatural speed. Xantarth fired and hit a shield that Kurt was carrying. Indeed, he looks even more dwarvish now than ever, Xantarth thought to himself as a smile creased his face. Just then, as Xantarth prepared to fire a second time, Kurt had thrown a short plasma sword at him. Xantarth chose to save his shot and his life by rolling out of the way of this deadly projectile. Kurt was on Xantarth the moment his roll was finished. "You are faster than I had expected you to be," Xantarth said as he struggled to free himself from the grip that held him. Kurt ran with all the speed he could muster and slammed Xantarth into the nearest wall. The impact had made an impression in the wall in the shape of Xantarth's shoulders. The air left him for a moment as he dropped his heavy blaster, and he had to regain composure. "I cannot let you live. You stand in the way of my conquest," Kurt roared at Xantarth, revealing teeth that had been sharpened to fine points. "I shall have Mr. Odwed's empire, and none shall defy me." It would seem that my information that I had on you was not thoroughly completed, Xantarth thought. Still, Sinfusians all have the same vulnerable spot. He swung his fist and connected with a granite jaw. This only enraged Kurt. Apparently, that's not his vulnerable spot. "You think you can hurt me with your feeble strikes?" Kurt said with disgust. "My people are trained their entire lives to be masters of close combat." Kurt drove an enormous knee into Xantarth's stomach. Blood spit flew from his mouth. struggling to breathe. Xantarth knew he needed to distract Kurt, to gain a moment of advantage. Another knee flew as Kurt held Xantarth firmly against the wall. More blood this time. 2 more strikes were felt as his vision blurred. He was feeling faint, unable to focus. Air seemed in short supply to his lungs. I must think fast, or else it would all be over. All of my work, all of my loss, to die at the hands of this ugly man thing. Kurt's head slammed into Xantarth's face, and now he was seeing stars. Usually such a beautiful and welcome sight. Xantarth felt now was not the time to be an astronomer. Is that a little joke because he lives in outer space and he sees stars all the time? Then a thought occurred to him. Insults. That usually works. You know what, Kurt? Xantarth said with a rugged whisper. You know what, Kurt? Tell me, fool. I wish to know your dying words so I can tell your boss before I kill him, Kurt said as he smiled, his sharp-toothed smile making him look more of a monster than anything else. Xantarth looked at Kurt into his eyes and spoke. With all of those augmentations you have done to yourself, you are one ugly motherfucker. Just then, Kurt took one massive fist from Xantarth's arm and made to show him what strength he really had. Xantarth prepared himself for the coming blow and used his free hand to quickly jab his plasma dagger, a stiletto-style weapon with a polished white metal hilt and a dark red glowing blade. It had inspired fear into all that had seen it in Xantarth's hand, if they had ever lived long enough to see him wield it. Kurt's fist came down like a power hammer, ready to make a ruin of Xantarth's face. Xantarth dodged the oncoming strike from Kurt as he brought his free arm up to Kurt's ribcage. The stench of melting granite filled the bridge, along with the screams of Kurt. He threw Xantarth into the flight control panel and retreated towards the rear of the bridge. Xantarth thought he was trying to escape, and then thought better of it. He's going for a weapon. Xantarth didn't hesitate as he hurled his plasma dagger end over end at Kurt's left leg. It made contact as it flew through his calf muscle. His plasma dagger, yeah. He hurled his plasma dagger end over end at Kurt's left leg. It made contact as it flew through his calf muscle and exited his kneecap. Ouch. It stuck into the wall with the blade and the halted at the crossguard. Kurt fell to the ground, looking similar to the pile of rocks he had laid as a trap not too long ago. Xantarth approached him with caution. Kurt may be down, but he is not out of the fight yet. Xantarth picked up his heavy blaster and aimed it at Kurt. He rolled over onto his back and spoke to Xantarth. You work for that creature, Mr. Oddwed, so freely? You know what he has done, what he is, Kurt accused him. He is more of a monster than I could ever be. Blood oozed from his mouth. Have you any idea of what he will do to you? I know of his plans for you. A maniacal laugh escaped his lips as he breathed blood bubbles, a curdling sound, like magma overflowing from an active volcano, was heard in his breath. Xantarth stared at Kurt with a grim look on his face. I know what he and you are capable of. His voice was full of malice. If you know so much about his plans, then surely you know a little of mine. All I know of his plans for you is that I wouldn't expect to go on living much longer after you finish your job here. Kurt's eyes looked out of the bridge front window. Xantarth held his heavy blaster on Kurt and walked to retrieve his plasma dagger. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? Kurt did not move, knowing all too well what a weapon such as that was capable of. Still, he thought he would have his moment to stop his attacker and find a way to survive this. Then Kurt saw something in his attacker's eyes as he pulled his plasma dagger from the wall. He had recognized the look in his eyes and the weapon that Xantarth held. That dagger, Kurt said through a blood-filled mouth. Where'd you get that from? Xantarth looked down at Kurt and spoke. Xantarth looked down at Kurt and spoke with dark intention. I have always had this. It was made for me by someone special. Kurt's eyes were fixed on the plasma dagger. Fear crossed his face as if he had seen a ghost. It was given to me by someone special, and it was this special someone that you helped to murder, Xantarth said coldly. Realization dawned on Kurt's mind as a whirlwind of memories came flooding back to him. He knew all too well now who was that had bested him this day in battle. Xantarth? Kurt asked. In the flesh, Xantarth said as he pulled the trigger on his blaster. The sound of crackle whip was heard twice. Kurt's arms burned and melted into heated ash piles. His screams were blood-filled and full of agony. Xantarth sheathed his plasma dagger and holstered his heavy blaster. As he left the flight deck, he placed a small metallic box next to the flight controls. If I were you, I would call someone for help before you die. Perhaps there is someone out there that would do something to assist you. Xantarth spoke with a smile, knowing that there was only one person that Kurt would contact, and this creature would do nothing for him now. Back at the emergency door, Xantarth called his ship back as he held his breath. His skin changed as the miniature reactor sent the surge of electricity through his body. He opened the emergency door and left the ship. When he returned to his ship, he went straight to the bridge and flew to a safe distance and waited to enjoy the show. Kurt Valkyrie lay on the bridge of his ship, slowly dying. His arms still burned where they used to be. His one remaining leg was all that he had left of useful limbs. He could still feel his severed leg, which was on the ground next to him. If he wanted to, he swore that he could make his toes move. He felt the toes move on his ghost foot, but the ones on the leg that laid on the floor just stayed there motionless. From where he lay, he attempted to activate the hyperlink via voice command. His voice came out in a low gargle. Computer, activate hyperlink. Blood spilled forth from his mouth. The computer did not recognize his command. He tried again. Computer, activate hyperlink. His vision was blurred and his chest was feeling heavy and weak. Attempting to speak louder was exerting too much of what life he had left. If he were to contact anyone, he would have to be closer to the flight control console. With what little strength he had left, he sat up and then fell forward onto his face. He pushed himself towards the flight control console using his one good leg and pulled himself with his chin. It was an agonizing ordeal, but he knew it must be done. He felt death coming closer, but still he pressed forward. As he came within 3 feet of the flight control console, he rolled over onto his back and activated the hyperlink by a voice command. Computer! He struggled. Yes, Kurt, the computer responded. Activate hyperlink. The voice he had left was soft and dying. Hyperlink activated, the computer replied. Whom would you like to contact? Kurt had passed out and was unresponsive. The computer repeated. Hyperlink activated. Whom would you like to contact? Kurt regained consciousness. He found himself lying on his back, took a deep, painful breath and spoke. Contact Mr. Oddwed. The computer took a moment to analyze his request and then acknowledged. Contacting Mr. Odwed, please wait for connection. The passing 30 seconds seemed to Kurt to be the longest he'd ever experienced in his entire life, and were probably going to be his last. His continual struggle to remain conscious and alive was becoming increasingly arduous. He sat up and turned slowly to see the view screen of the hyperlink. Finally, the connection was completed, and someone answered. "This is Mr. Odwed's hyperlink." "Fawn Drake speaking," said Fawn Drake, a Turkarian, in his usual professional manner. Fawn Drake was tall and thin with turquoise fish scale skin. I like the alliteration there. Fawn Drake was tall and thin with turquoise fish scale skin. Tongue twister. His eyes were gray, large and wide set on his head, which had long, bright orange hair that radiated light, even though it always appeared to be wet. His fingers were extremely long, as were his arms and legs. His feet were webbed, being that Turkarians were semi-aquatic creatures. On his neck lay an elaborate golden necklace of intricate knot work that only slightly covered his gills. Fawn Drake. Kurt struggled to speak as thick clotted blood spewed from his mouth. "I need to speak to Mr. Odwed." This complete sentence had nearly finished him. He was fading into the blackness quickly now, and was not sure how much longer he could last. "I am sorry, Mr. Valkyrie. Mr. Odwed is currently on holiday now, and I was told not to disturb him." Fawn Drake smiled his professional smile at the obviously injured and dying Kurt Valkyrie. "It is," Kurt coughed up a large chunk of blood this time, "an emergency." In case you can't see that. "I am sorry, Mr. Valkyrie. I was informed by Mr. Odwed of your falling out with him, and he had commanded me to not let you disturb him." Again, Fawn Drake smiled. "Please be assured that I am giving you a professional courtesy by answering your hyperlink connection." Fawn Drake now frowned. "What happened to you, Mr. Valkyrie?" Fawn Drake asked. "I was attacked," Kurt answered. Fawn Drake rolled his eyes. "Well, obviously." The professional demeanor now gone, Fawn Drake spoke again. "I meant, why did you steal from Mr. Odwed? You knew he would find out and send someone to kill you for it." Before Kurt could answer, before he could send his warning to Mr. Odwed about Zan Tarth, Fawn Drake was interrupted. "Pardon me, sir. I am sorry to disturb you, but your lunch has arrived," said the voice of a waiter from the side of Fawn Drake. "Oh, how wonderful! I so do love lunch. Thank you. Thanks." Fawn Drake said to the waiter as he waved a limp wrist hand. "Well, I have to go. You know how I hate to eat a cold meal," Fawn Drake said to Kurt. "Good luck with everything you have planned for your future," he said in a professional tone again. "We look forward to hearing from you again." The hyperlink was disconnected, and Kurt was left there on his ship dying. The end could not come soon enough for him. His pain was excruciating. Then he noticed something different on the flight control console. It was a small metallic box. He had not remembered seeing it there before. On the box was a small lens. "Has he been watching me this whole time?" Kurt asked himself. Then he looked down underneath the flight control console. There sat another metallic box, a little larger in size, with the writing "Dangerous, High Explosives" on the front of it. Made by Acme. Beneath this writing, there was a small label. This one read, "Odwed Weapons Manufacturing." He knew this device. He knew what it would do. He had used it before on countless victims and had seen the aftermath. Nothing would be left of him but cosmic dust. An electrostatic spark sound was heard in the air as the hairs on the back of his neck stood up on end and his head moved in quick convulsions. More blood flew from his mouth and splattered the small metallic box that had the lens on it with his gore. He knew this sound would be the third to last sound he would hear. Kurt screamed as the world that was left for him on his ship turned searing hot and luminous. He was vaporized along with his ship in a scatter of light that was a beauty to behold. While Xantarth's thoughts came back to the now, his hyperlink was connected. What appeared before him was his view screen was Mr. Odwed, a large, bulky, bullish-looking male. He was well over 500 pounds of muscle and fat, with a flat-topped head, large ears that were low set on his skull just at the jawline, and a short, cropped hairstyle that reminded Xantarth of the jars that he kept his herbs in while on his travels. His skin was the color of tanned leather and very thick. He had resembled the rhinates of Oatlaf, except he did not have the horns on his face. Xantarth felt that perhaps he had them removed at one time, long ago, to appear more suitable for business affairs. I assume you are calling to inform me that you have taken care of your assignment, Torin? Said Mr. Odwed. His voice was thick, like bubbling tar. You know that I don't wish to be disturbed while I'm on retreat, he said, with a reluctance that was not easily hidden. Your face looks as if you had a difficult time with this recent contract. Xantarth said nothing while he wiped the blood stains from his face. Mr. Odwed had met Torin 50 years ago when he had hired him to collect on a bounty. Since his first contract had been completed successfully and with great deal of finesse, Mr. Odwed found that calling on Torin to fulfill contracts was a wise choice. As time passed, he found more reasons to choose Torin for doing what jobs his own hired hands were simply incapable of achieving. As of the last 6 months, though, Mr. Odwed had begun to see Torin's behavior change. It was becoming less neat with his contracts and leaving far too much carnage in his wake. This fact had begun to weigh on Mr. Odwed's thoughts more as of late. A creature of immense power with little to fear now had suspicion and caution becoming his daily traits. My contract has been fulfilled, replied Xantarth with his gravelly voice. You understand that I would have no other desire to contact you otherwise, he said, as a small smirk crossed his mouth. To think that you resign little to no pleasure from this job is beyond my comprehension. I know that you had looked forward to using the new toy with which I had been provided to you. Mr. Odwed sat, studying Torin for any reaction about his comment, but to see what he was really thinking would have taken a detective to figure it out, or perhaps a psychologist, or both. Xantarth waited patiently for his employer's subtle frown to show, and it did. There it is, he thought to himself, and felt just a little bit better about what he had done. Mr. Odwed did not like a mess, nor did he like loose ends. This is why he had hired Torin. He knew that Kurt Valkyrie needed to be killed. Kurt had betrayed Mr. Odwed and stolen billions of credits from his empire. This sort of behavior was not forgivable, no matter how long Kurt had been in service of Mr. Odwed. When he had found out that Kurt was planning to overthrow him and seize the empire that he built, he decided to call on Torin to solve this problem. Torin had taken care of it, apparently, yet something was not right about the situation to him. Mr. Odwed was told by Fondrake that Kurt had attempted to contact him via hyperlink some minutes before Torin had contacted him directly. When asked why the traitor had tried to contact him, Fondrake said, "He said he was attacked. I know, sir, that you did not wish to speak to him, and I told him so. He insisted it was an emergency. I said you had wished not to be disturbed, knowing all too well that he had stolen from you, and that you sent that Torin fellow to deal with him. I assume he was contacted you to let you know that he was dying. He was contacting you to let you know that he was dying. Why else would he had tried contacting you, sir?" Mr. Odwed thought to himself about Kurt and Torin, the immediate timing of their two hyperlink contacts to him. Why else? Why else would that traitorous son of a bitch want to speak to me? To tell me he was dying? No, not likely. To tell me who had killed him? I would already know that. To apologize? Not at all. He was too proud to do that. Then why would he attempt to contact me? Perhaps to make his death look real as he and Torin joined together to take me down against my knowledge? Mr. Odwed's inner dialogue with himself grew at an alarming rate. Uh-oh. As these thoughts started to grow roots, he was distracted by a more troubling situation. On the beach where he lay, his drink card had gone empty. A shocking reality had settled in. His sobriety was coming back. A blinding headache was crossing over him, and he could not think straight. Mr. Odwed had used many substances to mask the dealings he had made and the memories of the dark things he did to gain his wealth and power. He enjoyed the elation he felt in his altered state of mind and the ease with which he could justify his atrocious actions. He needed more drink, and he needed it now. Libations! Another drink cart immediately, Mr. Odwed demanded. Right away, sir, said the holiday retreat waiter, and hurried away. Mr. Odwed tipped well enough, but to delay what he demanded was never a good idea. I will be in touch, Torin. I have business to attend to, slurred Mr. Odwed. I'll keep my hyperlink active for the next contract, Xantarth said coolly and disconnected the transmission. Mr. Odwed's face disappeared from the view screen when the link was disconnected. I cannot wait to be rid of that waste of air-breathing life, Xantarth said quietly to himself. He hadn't been very fond of Mr. Odwed since he first met him. As a matter of fact, he had loathed him the moment he set eyes on that creature. Their first meeting was not a pleasant one. Most of those that met Xantarth without his prior consent were either a mark or were looking to do him harm. On the night that Xantarth met Mr. Odwed, he intended to do much more than harm Xantarth. He had planned on taking his world away. He wanted to destroy everything that he found happiness in. And then, after he had made Xantarth a broken shell of a man, he would kill him. Xantarth leaned back in his captain's chair and relaxed himself as best he could. While he closed his eyes, thoughts of his last night with Louisa came back to him slowly. The images were spotty to him at first, like a light spring rain falling down to a grass meadow that was carried on a gentle breeze coming down from a high mountain top. Brought along with it were familiar sounds and scents from his past. I swear that I can smell sandalwood. Is this the end here? I would say this is a very long chapter 1. And you are covering a lot of bases for a single chapter, I will have to say. But it looks like this is the final section here. The air was cool where Xantarth lay on the soft pillow-top mattress, and the scent of sandalwood drifted towards him from the bathroom. Steam rose out of the doorway towards the ceiling as Louisa was drying off after her bath with a thick cotton towel, an old luxury that she had always enjoyed from her past. It was a common practice of hers for when she and Xantarth had finished making love. Yes, common practice, showering after lovemaking. Not that she felt dirty afterwards. No, she felt alive. And feeling so alive, she enjoyed the sensation of cleaning herself that much more. The oils and soaps that she used were as treasures to her skin, a sweet reward after such a sweet release with the one that she loved. I'll be out in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, darling, she said. Take your time, sweet cheeks, Xantarth said out of the corner of his mouth, making his voice sound as if he were an actor from one of those 1930s Earth movies. And don't forget to put the kettle on when you come out. Yeah, see? He laughed to himself. He did enjoy that ancient culture. And to watch, here's looking at you, kid. He did enjoy that ancient culture and to watch some of the old video histories again and again. He enjoyed the simplicity of them and found most of it humorous. Put the what on? Louisa asked, half hearing him as she toweled her hair. Never you mind, pretty lady. I will be here waiting patiently for you. Xantarth had a love for Louisa that he had never felt for anyone. He felt drawn to her, connected to her. Life was worth living, worth exploring, worth tasting. When he was with her, it felt as if everything were alive, and he could see the vibrations of life. He felt fire all over his body when he looked into her big, beautiful eyes. He felt hunger when he heard her laugh, a hunger for life itself. They had known each other for 9 years now, and now was the beginning of the 9th year, to the day. It was their anniversary of the first time they met, the first time they kissed, the first time they fell in love. They had met when Xantarth was on a contract and she had caught his attention. Nothing had ever distracted him from his objective until he saw her, a man of extreme precision and sure death. He was the best at what he did. He had been hired to do the best job that a mercenary could do. And when someone wanted someone else dead, he would give them exactly what they hired him for. That all changed the day Xantarth met Louisa. It was fortunate for them that they had met then. Unfortunate for them as well. Xantarth thought he had fulfilled that particular contract. When he failed to do so, he had made an enemy. He had never failed to complete a contract before that one. While waiting for room service in the old Earth-themed hotel room that they enjoyed staying in, Xantarth turned on some music to set the mood for their anniversary. What played on the speakers was the same song that played the night they met. Ah, it is love that I'm feeling. It is love that I'm feeling, you wizards of white snakes. Ah, it is love that I'm feeling, you wizards of white snakes, Xantarth said as he laid back on top the bed, lit a herbal smoke, and closed his eyes. His thoughts drifted back to that wondrous night he first talked to and held Louisa. He felt joy as a smile spread across his face, and he sank deeper into the bed. Hey, Rainer. The sound of the music was just loud enough to drown out the noise of the waiter being strangled outside in the hallway. Xantarth heard a knock at the door. "Room service, Mr. Xantarth," a voice was heard saying. "What was that?" Louisa asked. "It is Jeremy, the room service attendant," answered Xantarth. "Oh, he must be here with our food and champagne," Louisa said with delight. She had hung her towel to dry and slipped on her evening clothes, a pair of black leather pants and a tan brown leather vest. "Tell him I said thank you." And Xantarth. "Yes, babe?" Xantarth asked. And Xantarth. "Yes, babe," Xantarth asked. "Don't forget to tip him." Louisa laughed as she brushed her hair. "I haven't forgotten to tip him in 9 years." Xantarth laughed in return as he walked towards the door. "With everything I have tipped him, I'm surprised that he still works here and has not chosen to become the owner and buy this place." Xantarth had been in this hotel with Louisa 20 different times over the span of their 9 years together, 9 years to the day. Xantarth approached the door, and as he turned the handle to open it, a large and very powerful shape slammed against it on the other side. The door hit Xantarth across the face, and he saw purples, blacks, and stars as he reeled back and hit his head on the floor. Louisa, who just finished brushing her hair and was leaving the bathroom, had only just seen Xantarth fall to the floor before she saw what appeared to be a large, hairless, green gorilla wearing a waiter's uniform. Panic had covered her body, much like the cotton towel had when she left the bathtub. For an instant, she could not move, could not breathe. The moment had passed quickly in time, but to her, time had stood still for far too long, and she felt as if she was suffocating. As she stood there, drowning in frozen time, lungs burning, the imagined horrors she had long ago came back to her, like the childhood toy you had only thought you lost, but had forgotten that you had left it behind your dresser drawers. Oddly specific. All the while, these nightmares were waiting patiently, and now they were ready to strike. "Gather them up and bring them to the ship," the stern voice of the gorilla commanded. Xantarth was still in a star-studded haze when he felt vice grips take him by the neck and balls. A flash of red pain crossed his eyes. The stars disappeared and were replaced with the vision of Louisa punching a tall and very thin, weaselly-looking creature. Well, at least she's a fighter. As Xantarth began to struggle with his captor, he recalled where he left his heavy blaster. It was in the desk drawer across the room, but as an old habit, he had always carried his plasma dagger on his belt, a useful tool for any occasion, and this was an occasion that it would be needed more than to cut the cake that was planned as a dessert for after dinner tonight. With what little consciousness he had left, Xantarth drew his blade from the sheath he had behind his belt on his back of his pants and slashed across the vice grip that held him by the balls. A sudden relief was felt, and the vice grip disappeared, only to be replaced by the lack of oxygen he had when the one around his neck became tighter. "I didn't know you were awake yet," grunted the gorilla. "If I did, I would have given this to you earlier." A rush of fresh oxygen entered Xantarth's lungs as the vice grip around his neck was let loose. Suddenly, a large and stone-like fist came crashing down on his face. A new constellation of stars bloomed in front of Xantarth, and it seemed as though the night sky had opened up in the hotel room. Sound was fading in and out, as if he were submerging in and out of a body of water in rapid succession. Blood had been cauterized, but that did not mean the gorilla wound did not hurt. He felt a burning sensation where the ghost hand once was. It was now on the floor in front of him, looking like a spider on its back, long dead for 3 summers. Anger flashed of the gorilla's face, but he held onto his professional demeanor. It was only a job to bring Xantarth in. A new hand could be surgically attached, or even the old one. He thought about this because this was not the first time an augmentation would need to be done to himself, nor would it be the last. Come on, Kurt. Come on, Kurt. Do you have him or not? The Weasley-looking creature shouted. This one is giving me more trouble than we were told she would. Then hit her already and be done with it, Kurt replied, his voice short with patience. We were told to bring them in alive. Nothing was said about what we needed to do to make that happen, though. There was a loud smash sound of glass on a solid object, and Xantarth heard what sounded like a limp body hitting the floor. He tried to yell for Louisa, but there was no air escaping his throat, as the vice grip had returned around his neck and held firm. As the new starlight faded to blackness, Xantarth would think of only 2 things. The first was if Louisa was safe, which he knew for certain that she was not. The second was, why the fuck didn't I just check the peephole on the door first? Blackness took hold, and Xantarth sunk deeper into it, as comforting to him now as a warm blanket to a newborn baby in its mother's arms. He would not be so comfortable when he awoke. That is the end of chapter 1, a very long chapter 1. But I guess just to kind of recap, we got here. Probably it was so long because I would say that you were kind of overwriting a little bit on the descriptions. This is just my own. I know you're not asking me for critiques, but just as kind of my first thoughts on it. But yeah, I mean, I guess what you did do with the first chapter is you did introduce, it appears to me that you have introduced all the main characters of this story. So that's good. The visuals, you were for as much description as there was with this, I was digging some of the imagery that you were using in this. I do like that there was action. I do like that you were including action as to kind of hook the reader first thing in the chapter. And you've kind of went ahead, and it appears that you have kind of done a good job in terms of setting up the overall plot for this book. So definitely for me, if I'm to kind of interpret it, it sounds like this guy was doing a job for his boss, and now his boss kind of is this... he's kind of like thinking that there's a conspiracy happening. He's very paranoid. Strikes me as a very paranoid type of character. And clearly it's that feeling is kind of mutual. Not necessarily paranoia, but the paranoia is for good reason, because apparently the main character doesn't think very highly of his boss. But at least not at first. But now I'm thinking that perhaps we may find out later in the book, if I'm not mistaken, that his boss certainly had something to do with this kidnapping right here. So wherever this story goes from here on out, or maybe that's just a red herring. We might find out that that little thing with his boss seeming paranoid with the call, perhaps all that was just kind of a red herring before the kidnapping, which would be very intriguing, by the way. to make you think that the boss was behind that kidnapping, when in all actuality, it might be a different character that's behind it. So there is, it at least it leaves you with something to chew on, something to think about later on in the book. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I hope I was not too critical of your work, as that's not really the point of this reading time. So for those of you who have something that you would like me to read live on the air, you can submit first chapters, like if you have it linked on your blog, preferably if it's already linked on your blog, like I'd rather not have to download PDFs and whatnot. So just like publish it on your blog, whether it be an essay, article, poetry, or a piece of flash fiction or something like that. I'll read that live on the air. Let me see how you guys how you guys doing with that bedtime story? You still awake? We had Rainer hopping in right at the tail end there. Herman saying hello. All right, guys. I got one more segment here. I changed it. You was call it featured video. Now I'm simply just calling it featured media, because this could be like if you do audiobooks and we do like audiobook samples, or if you do like poetry reading or something like that, and there's really no visual, I just call it featured media. But for tonight, I have something that comes from somebody who is part of a Gilded server that I am on. And he shared a little something with me. He does every Thursday. He does a little something called Hobo Sermons. Yes, that's right. He does live streams on Thursdays, you guys. And he does, basically, if I had to basically just wrap it up, he does live acoustic guitar. So he plays acoustic guitar live on the air, and the way that he kind of does the live streams, it's akin to like the days when like I'd go out to the local bars and the local pubs and stuff like that, and enjoy some live entertainment. Like they'll have some live entertainment there. There'd be a guy, he'd have his setup there, whether it be acoustic or electric, whatever. And he definitely has that, and he definitely strikes me as somebody who's not a stranger to that type of scene. Like he does certainly kind of carry that kind of stage presence and carries it over, and it translates well to his live streams. So if you guys, kind of enjoy that kind of vibe where, you're going and you're enjoying a drink, maybe a little maybe that's why he did it on Thursdays, because it's like Thirsty Thursdays. You know what I mean? So you want to enjoy, a nice adult beverage, kick back, relax, and listen to some original tunes. This guy, he does them every Thursday. So let's check out. He's got an original song. He kind of time stamped it. So we'll just do the original song and we'll close out the stream with that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool. So we'll close out the stream with that. So I'll say goodbye to you guys. So I thank you guys, all who showed up in the chat. Those of you watching this on the replay, make sure you can drop a comment down below. Let me know who stopped by and what you thought of the show or anything on the show. You can check out the hot topics, go to the community tab, cast your vote for the book this week. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you had some fun. I hope you all discovered something new, but don't fret, because I will be back here for you next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a good week, guys. While I set this up.
My name is Joni, and I fought for friends. My name is Tud, and I built lots of pyramids. My name is Nicholas, and I have syphilis. My name is Isis, I'll be alone forever. My name is Larry, and I'm no more curly. My name is Laura, my big fat friend is Hardy. My name is Smothers, I got an idiot for a brother. My name is Isis, I'll be alone forever. My name is Reynolds, and I know how to rap it. Mine is good, yeah, my big old blimp is fantastic. My name is Ford, and I'm a racist bigot. My name is Isis, I'll be alone forever. My name is Dick, and I got me a heart problem. My name is George, and I stole everything I got. My name is Donald, I love to drop bombs on people. My name is Isis, I'll be alone forever. Forever.